This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto was sent back in time by gods. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Not wasting no time, let's start the story.
The Fourth World War of Shinobi. The death of one Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki was imminent. His tenant, Kurama, was torn from him and added to the Gedo statue, so he knew. Gyubi, the Ten Tails, was about to be unleashed and wreak havoc on the five major elemental nations. The yin half of Kurama, which he had sealed inside himself 17 years prior, was indeed transported into Naruto by his father, Minato Namikaze. Even so, he was aware that he and his son faced numerous challenges. Images of every person that Naruto regarded as valuable and who was dead on the battlefield were flashing past him in his mind. The first person to die was Neji, who sacrificed his life to shield Naruto from a five-tailed beast ball that Madara Uchiha was controlling. Rock Lee and Maeda Sensei were the next to pass away. They opened all 8 of their gates in the fight against Madara, but it was in vain, and they ultimately perished. Shoji and Sai were next in line. As a last resort to eliminate as many Zetsu clones as possible, Shoji had passed away after ingesting the final medication, the red chili pill. Although Sai was helping Shoji, he eventually fell after his teammate did. Attempting to heal their comrades had caused Ino and Sakura to die from extreme chakra exhaustion. When Tenten used a different kind of exploding tag, she sacrificed herself to buy the others some time, taking down at least 20 clones in the process. Akamaru and Kiba followed suit with themselves. Shino was killed after using himself as a stand-in. Fighting against Obito, Kakashi Sensei had lost his life. Shikamaru had lost his life in battle with him. Despite being one of his closest friends, he was unable to save him. However, Hinata's passing was the worst thing that happened to Naruto. He had a shy academy girl named Hinata who always fainted when he spoke to her. The same girl who revealed her love for him, bravely rescued him when he was pinned down during Pain's invasion, and died only to be resurrected. Even though he didn't always believe in himself, the girl never stopped believing in him. She had been killed by Obito Uchiha while attempting to save him once more. Sasuke Uchiha was the only one still alive, and even he was near death. The allied shinobi force had benefited from his last-minute transformation. However, since he was going to die and soon join them in the afterlife, none of that mattered at this time. After a while, he opened his eyes in the hopes of entering a wonderful afterlife. However, he was surprised by what he discovered. He discovered an elderly man sitting on a stage of some sort, staring at him while holding a staff. Additionally, he discovered that Kurama and the other tailed beasts were all present and observing him. He was pleased to see Kurama because, although it perplexed him, he had assumed that Kurama was also drawn into the statue. "Hey Kurama," Naruto said, grinning as he gazed at the nine-tailed fox, "why aren't you in that weird statue? Where are we? And how are you?" "Shut up, Kit. You are embarrassing me in front of the great sage of 6 paths," yelled Kurama, face-palming. The tailed beasts all began to perspire. "So this is the sage of 6 paths you were talking about," he said, turning to face the sage. "Hey old man. How are you?" The sage chuckled lightly and remarked, "I see that you are the reincarnation of Ashura, my son." Naruto questioned, "So, where are we, old man?" "We are in a place deep inside you, concise, accessible only to you, Kurama and the other tailed beasts. Not even the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan can penetrate," the wise man said. With no interest in the explanation, Naruto asked, "So why are we here?" "Before I answer your question, I have some of my own to ask you. Will you answer them sincerely?" asked the wise man. "Shoot," was Naruto's word. The sage said, "Very well, but before I ask you my questions, I will tell you the history of the shinobi world. Listen to it carefully." Naruto listened intently as the sage explained the past. He filled him in on everything, including the Gyubi, the tailed beasts, and Kagaya. He explained to him the nature and abilities of his sons, Ashura and Indra. He also explained the curse of hatred to him. "Naruto, do you understand everything?" he said at last. "Apart from the stuck-up attitude of this Indra guy, yeah, I understand pretty much everything," Naruto replied. "Well then, I will ask you my questions," replied the wise man. "What would you do if I gave you powers of the Jinchuriki of Gyubi?" With assurance, resolve, sorrow, and anger in his lucid blue eyes, Naruto declared, "I will ensure that none of my friends perished in vain and that both Obito and Madara perished." The sage turned to Kurama and said, "Kurama, guide the boy and help him succeed. All of you help him in succeeding." He then threw the staff he was holding in Naruto's direction. "Very well, I will give you my chakra, use it well," he said. A tremendous amount of chakra flowed through his body as he caught it. "Naruto, Fist bump with the rest of us to gain some of each of our powers as well, Kurama yelled as Naruto prepared to leave the area. Following instructions, Naruto received a piece of chakra from each tailed beast. Just as he was ready to go, he thought of something. "Hey old man, is there a way to start all over and prevent all of these?" he said, turning to face the sage. The wise man laughed and replied, "There is a way. A time-travel jutsu that allows you to travel back in time with your memories and powers intact, but you will be back in your younger body. Why do you ask?" "Because I am going back to the past and I will change the future," Naruto said with a foxy smile. In anticipation of this, the sage said, "I knew you would say that, boy. Alright, I'll use the rest of my chakra to perform the jutsu. Get strong in the past and learn to use my chakra. Now that it has merged with yours, it will not run out as long as you live. Kurama, guide the boy. All of you help him. You will be sent back to your 8-year-old body, just after the Uchiha massacre. All the best, Naruto." The room in Naruto's apartment from 9 years ago. Future memories flooded Naruto's mind as he awoke from his slumber. To alter the future, he had a lot of work ahead of him. In other places, future memories flooded the minds of 8 other tailed beasts and their Jinchuriki. And it was the work of a blonde boy named Naruto Namikaze Naruto. In his apartment, Naruto awoke in his 8-year-old body. The memories of the future were fresh in his mind. His recollections of his beloved people. Those who had sacrificed themselves for the village and for him. He had the opportunity to save them all, and he made a self-promise to save them this time. The only issue was that his body responded to his commands in an odd way. Without it, he would have nearly jumped through the building's roof when he attempted to jump out of his bed. He had a great deal of work ahead of him. According to what the clock showed, it was still 3 in the morning. He therefore had plenty of time to adjust to the body. He started exercising by attempting to use his fingers and then his hands until he realized he had total control over them, rather than getting up right away. He then concentrated on moving his legs and adjusted to the energy required to do so. In roughly 30 minutes, he was able to fully control his body. He had not anticipated it to be so early. He decided that it would be best to arrange some training since he was unable to return to sleep. He got up to freshen up after thinking about that, but he was shocked. By chance, he noticed the calendar hanging on the wall of his apartment. He was back 9 years instead of 8 years in the past. He was sufficiently shocked by that to lose all of the sleep he would have otherwise lost. He took a seat in the well-known lotus position and began to meditate in order to access his inner mindscape or subconscious. However, what he encountered was a very peacefully dozing Kurama, the 9-tailed fox, Kyubi no Kitsune. Additionally, there was nothing on the large bars for the fox's cage in place of the seal with the kanji word for seal written on it. The gate was unlocked and it was open. When Kurama opened his eyes after feeling someone had entered his kit's mindscape, he discovered that his own kit had done so, presumably to inquire. Kurama said, "What is it, Naruto? I'm trying to sleep here, wasn't I? Weren't we supposed to go 8 years back in time and not 9? Answered Naruto. "Yes, you were right. But, during the process, some of all of our chakras got merged with the Great Sage, which led us to go back not 8 but 9 years into the past. On the bright side, kid, we have more time to train your so-called body," laughed Kurama. "Hey, it's not my fault that everyone refuses to sell good stuff to me. The only people who are both nice to me and sell food to me are Old Man Tucci and Ayame.ni.san, said the brunette. "Well then, ask that old man Hokage to get you some good and healthy stuff to eat. Ask him because he won't refuse," Kurama was told. Naruto made a sheepish smile and ruffled his hair before asking, "Wait a minute, why hadn't I thought about it before?" "Because you were and will be an idiot, kid. And that is what makes you, Kurama replied. Naruto stepped out of his mindscape after saying, "I guess you were right. Okay, got to go and meet the old man." Naruto discovered that it was 7:30 a.m. when he opened his eyes. He needed to go to an academy. He therefore believed that he needed to start managing time in his mindscape. After getting ready and making sure his apartment was secure, he hurried to the academy when a thought suddenly occurred to him. He had not yet been accepted into the academy, therefore, it would be awkward to run to the academy. Then something came back to him. Prior to Hinata enrolling in the academy, he had shielded her from a few bullies. It was still 2 years in the future. He reasoned that he could concentrate on training himself and acclimating to the abilities he had brought back from the future if he could convince the elderly man to allow him to join 2 years later at the same time as his classmates, comrades from the past, present, or whatever. He thought about this as he made his way to the Hokage Tower, oblivious to the vile looks he got from the villagers. The Tower of Hokage. The elderly Sandem, 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was making a valiant effort to vanquish the worst foe a person in a powerful position could have. He was attempting to evade the paperwork when the door abruptly flew open, revealing a blonde who had the secretary standing behind him, attempting to stop him. When Naruto saw the man, who resembled his grandfather, still alive, he frantically tried to hide his feelings by saying, "Hey Gigi, I really want to talk to you." Her words, "Lord Hokage, forgive me, I couldn't stop the demon brat," were cut short when the old man's enormous murderous intent seeped into the air, causing the secretary and even the ANBUs present to perspire heavily. "You may leave," was his straightforward response to the secretary, halting the murderer's plan. The secretary walked out without turning around. Without even understanding what he had said, Naruto exclaimed, "Wow, that was some intense killer intent, old man." "Naruto, how come you know about killer intent?" the elderly man asked, raising an eyebrow at the blonde. Realizing his error, Naruto fumbled with his thoughts for a response, saying, "I read about it in a book and its effects, and since it matched what I read, I assumed it was killer intent." It dawned on him abruptly that he had just buried himself. For the first time, he saw Guy Sensei and Lee wearing a dress that was socially acceptable instead of their green spandex suits. In an attempt to salvage the situation, the blonde said, "Well, recently I had nothing to do, so I went to the library and took out this book on Hokages, and in there I read about it." "Naruto, since when did you start reading books?" the old man asked. Fortunately for him, the elderly man appeared to have purchased the explanation because he was aware that Naruto aspired to become a Hokage and thus was interested in learning about his forebears. The Hokage inquired, "What is it that you wanted to talk about, Naruto?" "Well, it's like this, Gigi. Can I enroll into the academy 2 years later?" replied Naruto. Naruto grimly responded, "I want to become a ninja and the Hokage, Gigi, but wouldn't it be best if I graduated with children around my age? I never had friends till now, maybe then I could make some friends." "Don't you think so, Gigi?" The Hokage raised his eyebrows slightly upon hearing this and asked, "Why is that so, Naruto? Don't you want to be a ninja soon?" The old man was hurt to learn that Naruto had no friends. He was hurt because it was all due to circumstances beyond his control. He was further hurt by Naruto's gloomy voice. He decided to grant Naruto's request because, at the very least, he wasn't always there for him. So he responded, "All right, Naruto, you can join the academy after 2 years. Make me proud, all right. But what will you be doing for 2 years?" Naruto was delighted by this and responded, "I will read up and prepare for the academy." "Gigi, can I get access to the shinobi section of the library?" The old man raised one eyebrow in response to the blonde's statement, asking, "Why would you want access to the shinobi section, Naruto?" The blonde in question, acknowledging his error, responded, "I overheard some shinobis that chakra control is very important for a shinobi. So I looked for it in the library, but found out that it was in the shinobi section and I was not allowed there." The Hokage accepted the complex lie that Naruto had concocted. "Here you go, Naruto. If you show this to the librarian, you will be allowed to the shinobi section of the library. Just don't get carried away and hurt yourself by trying to do some jutsus, okay? Learn as much as possible, because I expect great things from you," he said, pulling out a sheet of paper, writing some sort of permission form, signing it, and handing it to Naruto. "Don't you worry, Gigi. I will get better than you in no time and take that hat from you, believe it." "Got to go, bye," Naruto said, flashing the old man his signature foxy grin. After saying this, Naruto took the form and merely ran towards his apartment. The elderly man simply grinned at the antics of the blonde boys and returned to his work of battling the paperwork. Outside the tower of the Hokage, Kurama remarked, "Wow kid, you sure know how to lie at a moment's notice." Naruto answered, "We would be in a lot of trouble if I didn't." "Yes, it would have been bad, so, when will you start working?" Kurama responded. Naruto smiled and said, "Of course, tomorrow." "What? You don't have time on our hands, kid. You need to train. You should not be slacking off," Kurama snapped. Naruto questioned, "Who said I will be slacking off? Then what will you be doing?" "I will go to the library, get scrolls on chakra control, elemental jutsus on all 5 basic elements and some scrolls on history and tactics and of course some on fuinjutsu as well and start studying them in my apartment," Naruto said. "Seems like my kid is not an idiot after all. But I suggest you to read them in an empty training area if you want to use shadow clone jutsu, since we don't know what will happen if you use it with your present level of chakra control. And since the seal is not there anymore, you will have my chakra reserves and those of the other bijus too, which will definitely turn out to be disastrous if you try it in your apartment." The blonde exclaimed, "I guess you are right." So then, search for a new and empty training ground begins, and sprinted off in the direction of the library. After a while, in a remote location a little way behind the Hokage monument. With roughly 10 scrolls in his arms, Naruto said, "Well, this is the only place which was far away from Anbu patrols and close enough to the village. What do you think of it, Kurama?" "Not bad, Kit. You do know what you should do sometimes." "I am surprised," Kurama grumbled. The blonde mentally yelled, "Hey, stop making fun of me, you furball." Kurama pretended to be angry and asked, "What did you call me, Ugaki?" "Just live with it. We have got work to do, so give me a plan, okay?" replied Naruto. "Okay, here is the list of things you can do and you can't do at the moment. You obviously have access to my chakra shroud without harming your body or mind at the moment. You also have access to one-tailed chakra cloak, but you will get hurt and slowly start losing yourself to the bloodlust. Above that, you have access to no cloaks. You have massive chakra reserves alone, probably 10 times that of the old man. You have kept the chakra reserves from the future. You have all your jutsus from the future, but you can't use most of them due to your shoddy chakra control. That is all. So for the next 2 years, you will start working on mastering your chakra level to at least high Chunin level. Then learn to get over the bloodlust in one tail cloak and increase the number of tails to 3 at the very least. Then work on learning some jutsus from each element. Since you have all 5 elemental affinity now, you will use far less chakra for the jutsus. Learn the basics of fuinjutsu and improve your handwriting to that level where you can use seals without fear of them blowing. That is all of it," explained Kurama. Naruto said, "That's a lot. Let's get to work," and they began. Flashback. Okay, here is the list of things you can do and you can't do at the moment. You obviously have access to my chakra shroud without harming your body or mind at the moment. You also have access to one-tailed chakra cloak, but you will get hurt and slowly start losing yourself to the bloodlust. Above that, you have access to no cloaks. You have massive chakra reserves alone, probably 10 times that of the old man. You have kept the chakra reserves from the future. You have all your jutsus from the future, but you can't use most of them due to your shoddy chakra control. That is all. So for the next 2 years, you will start working on mastering your chakra level to at least high Chunin level. Then learn to get over the bloodlust in one tail cloak and increase the number of tails to 3 at the very least. Then work on learning some jutsus from each element. Since you have all 5 elemental affinity now, you will use far less chakra for the jutsus. Learn the basics of fuinjutsu and improve your handwriting to that level where you can use seals without fear of them blowing. That is all of it," explained Kurama. Naruto said, "That's a lot. Let's get to work," and they began. "Okay, Kit, let us see how many shadow clones you can make now," Kurama replied. Shadow clone jutsu surrounded Naruto as he made the all.2 familiar sign and let out a loud cry. Approximately 3,000 shadow clones were standing around him when the smoke cleared. Kurama remarked, "Wow, Kit, even with your useless chakra control, you can still make 3,000 shadow clones. Impressive." Naruto responded, "Should I be flattered or embarrassed?" Kurama reprimanded, "Take it however you want, Kit. Now get to work." "Okay, I have got 10 scrolls. 5 on elemental techniques, 1 on basic fuinjutsu, 2 on chakra control and 2 on taijutsu. So, if I divide 300 shadow clones for each of those scrolls, apart from the taijutsu, I will probably get all the scrolls down in a week at most. Okay guys, divide to groups of 300 and start practicing each scroll," said the blonde to his shadow clones. The group of shadow clones all took their individual scrolls and left to train as soon as the command was yelled. The original began working out physically. He was aware that although shadow clones returned their memories to the original, they did not return the physical training, despite the fact that fatigue was returned. He had to exercise on his own. He began by performing 50 push-ups, 50 squats, 50 sit-ups, stretching exercises, and 50 running and another 50 jogging laps around the training area. It was late in the evening when the original Naruto finished his physical training, and he was perspiring profusely. Meanwhile, at best, his army of shadow clones had advanced a little. Although he was able to comprehend the theory underlying the jutsus, his poor chakra control still made him not want to try them. The clones had demonstrated some improvement in their ability to memorize the stances of 2 different taijutsu styles. Though not very much, they had also been able to walk on water and trees. Although the fuinjutsu scroll was the most difficult, he was able to comprehend some of it. Overall, he was aware that he would master all of these scrolls in roughly 6 months if he continued this training schedule. He could then proceed to the following set of scrolls. Something crossed his mind just as he was ready to dispel his clones. A shiver ran down Naruto's spine as he considered what would happen if he fell into a coma. "Yo Kurama, How many clones should I dispel at a time without passing out or worse, going into a coma? He asked. Okay Kit, dispel 300 clones at a time. Wait for 5 minutes before dispelling the next 300. With me sorting out your memories here, you can do it every 5 minutes. That should enable you to dispel all your clones in 50 minutes without making you pass out. I will tone down the fatigue for you, Kurama said. Following instructions, Naruto gained access to all of the Shadow Clone's memories and experiences. In response to Kurama, Naruto said, Hey Kit, you need to start training on using my chakras soon. You will need my full power to change the future, so I suggest you get your chakra control to mid-Jonin level at least as soon as possible and then start working on using my chakra. Now all I need is a good shower, some sleep, and above all ramen, Naruto thought as he hurried over to Ichiraku's ramen. After 6 months, Naruto has been able to work out a lot over the past 6 months. He had mastered the exercises of water walking and tree walking. The third Hokage's chakra reserves were now 11 times his own. As a result, his chakra control was at the high Genin to low Chunin level, despite the fact that he had successfully mastered the 2 exercises. Since the academy-style taijutsu was the most fundamental, he had mastered its katas. He had also mastered rotation fist, which was based on a fast rotatory strike that gave the opponent less time to strike back. Since Naruto was aware that neither style was for him, he had planned to learn a variety of styles and blend them to create his own. He had finally perfected his handwriting and mastered the fundamentals of fuinjutsu. He could begin writing seals and practicing intermediate fuinjutsu. However, his only options at the intermediate level were to create some flashbang, storage, and exploding seals. After all, Naruto reasoned, it was a start. However, he had the most points on the jutsu's front. He had successfully learned both the transformation and replacement jutsus. He had learned 2 earth jutsus in elemental jutsu. Earth release. Hiding like a mole jutsu, a C-rank jutsu, and earth release. Double suicide decapitation jutsu, a D-rank jutsu, were the first 2. 2 fire jutsus had been taught to him. The first was fire release. Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu, which is a C-rank jutsu, and fire release. Fireball Jutsu, which is a D-rank jutsu. He was proficient in 2 lightning jutsus. One was the C-rank jutsu lightning release, electromagnetic murder, and the other was the C-rank jutsu lightning release, lightning beast tracking fang. 3 water jutsus were taught to him. Water release, wild water wave was the first, followed by water release, gunshot and water release, water prison jutsu. C-rank jutsus were all 3. He had finally learned 2 wind jutsus. Wind release. Gale Palm was the first, and wind release. Great Breakthrough was the second. C-rank jutsus were both of them. He was aware that in order to change the future, he would require more than just C-rank and D-rank jutsus, but he was unable to advance without elemental manipulation training. He therefore required assistance. He was only trained in wind manipulation, but he was unable to accomplish anything in the absence of a suitable training location. Additionally, Kurama needed improved chakra control before he could begin working on using his chakra. He was aware that he needed to confront the Hokage, but he was unsure of how to do so. Retrospection. He was aware that in order to change the future, he would require more than just C-rank and D-rank jutsus, but he was unable to advance without elemental manipulation training. He therefore required assistance. He was only trained in wind manipulation, but he was unable to accomplish anything in the absence of a suitable training location. Additionally, Kurama needed improved chakra control before he could begin working on using his chakra. He was aware that he needed to confront the Hokage, but he was unsure of how to do so. All I need to do now is proceed to the Hokage's tower, enter his office covertly, turn off the ANBUs, activate the sound seals, of which I am completely clueless, and then tell Gigi, hey Gigi, I am from the future, now help me with my training. I know about the Kyuubi and his name is Kurama. I will then be imprisoned in a cell 100 meters below the Anbu headquarters because I am under the control of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Great indeed, Naruto thought. Come on kid, it won't go that bad. The old man will believe you. After all, they don't call him the professor for nothing. Besides, I will be there for you to explain if he does not believe in you, Kurama replied. Yes, in order to lock me up. I'm not sure if I should laugh at the joke attempt, be shocked that you can joke, or get upset that you want to put me in jail. Wouldn't the former be ideal? Naruto sneered. I am not that bad, okay kid. You humans do not know me, so you make assumptions that I am incapable of cracking jokes. Now go and talk to the third Hokage, Kurama replied. Naruto yelled, okay, furball, but if anything happens, you are responsible, before sprinting in the direction of the Hokage's tower. After 5 minutes. In order to meet the third Hokage, Naruto was racing through the crowded village street in the direction of the Hokage's tower. Most of the villagers glared at him, and he noticed it. This time, however, he understood why he was despised. He couldn't blame them, after all. He was aware of what had transpired on the night of Kyuubi's assault. How his mother had given up the Kyuubi to Obito. How his father vanquished the masked man and sealed the Kyuubi within him, and how he used his Sharingan to cast a genjutsu and caused the fox to wreak havoc. However, none of this was known to the villagers. All they knew was that the village had been attacked by the Kyuubi, and that their loved ones and the fourth Hokage had perished in the conflict. Because of this, the people had only ever seen him as the demon and not the container. Their sadness impairs their judgment. But by this point, Naruto was unconcerned, since he was aware that their opinions would shift. The last time, following the wave mission, he was finally viewed as a decent person by the public. The people had begun to respect him and view him as a hero after he had won the Chunin exams, defeated the Ichibi Shukaku, and defended the village from it. Following the unsuccessful Sasuke retrieval mission, people began to show concern for him after learning that he had nearly died attempting to rescue Sasuke Uchiha. People began to respect him a little more after he returned from the 3-year training trip with his godfather, Jiraiya of the Sannin, and saved Gaara, the Kazekage. However, the Pain's invasion was the event that most altered their perception of him. He had defeated Pain, brought back to life everyone who had perished in the assault, and even restored hope to Nagato and Konan. Tsunade Senju, the 5th Hokage's slug summons, Katsuyu, was finally regarded as a hero on par with his father after he recounted all that had happened. He felt reassured by these ideas and was confident that he would win their respect this time around before Pain invaded. Indeed, he would not alter the course of events this time. Eventually, in the Hokage's tower, Naruto debated whether to go into the tower and tell the old man everything or to simply let it go and return to his training as usual. Just then, Kurama intervened. "Go on, kid, you need the help of someone in power to change the future. And the 3rd Hokage is the best man for the job. Besides, you and him share a grandson-like relationship, so expect no adverse effect. And remember what Itachi said to you. You should never get arrogant thinking that only you can do everything. You have to trust others. Your father and his predecessors did not become Hokage because they were strong but because they were acknowledged by people. They trusted others. So trust in others, Naruto." Naruto felt more assured after hearing this and went into the tower. Without any problems, Naruto made his way into the Hokage's office. When the 3rd Hokage saw that he had gained height and muscle since their last encounter 6 months prior, he cried out in surprise. "Wow, Naruto, you have grown. What have you been doing in the last 6 months? I hardly see you now." Days. Is there any problem? Seeing you, it seems you have problem with your training, if I am right?" replied the 3rd Hokage. "Gigi, we need to talk in private. Tell those 4 ANBUs hiding in the corners to go out and activate the soundproofing seals, please," Naruto said, flashing his well-known foxy grin. The Hokage stiffened and raised his defenses at this point. Additionally, the ANBUs in the room raised their vigilance and grabbed their weapons. At this, Naruto said, "Don't worry, Gigi, I am definitely not here to kill you. Besides, how can someone as young as me take on the professor? Please believe in me, Gigi, and do as requested." The Hokage gave the 4 ANBUs the order to leave the room after hearing this. Reluctantly, the Hokage turned on the soundproofing seals after they had left. The 3rd Hokage said, "Whoever you are doing a bad imitation of Naruto. Tell me where is the boy before I kill you in the most gruesome way," and began to leak a lot of killer intent as Naruto watched the ceiling with great interest. Before he knew it, a kunai was close to his neck. Naruto said, "Gigi, it is me, Naruto. Just hear me out, will you?" Having seen much worse murders in Madara, he was clearly not at all scared of the killer's intentions. The 3rd Hokage did not like this either, but he chose to listen to him. Still exuding the killer intent, the Hokage said, "Okay, speak of only the truth. Otherwise, I will rip your throat." Replied that, "With you leaking such a huge amount of killer intent, how can I even lie? Truth is all you will hear from me, though it will be impossibly unbelievable at first." The Hokage became perplexed by this and diminished the killer's intent, making space for the boy. "Okay, Gigi, I know about the Kyuubi. I have talked to him," Naruto replied. The Hokage was rocked by this. He began to question if the individual before him was actually Naruto. "I'm beginning to doubt you again," he said. The Hokage pondered for a moment before responding, "When were you kicked out of the orphanage and where do you live now?" Naruto then asked, "What should I do to convince you?" After a brief moment of sadness, Naruto responded, "I live alone in an apartment in the lower class districts of Konoha, Gigi, and I was kicked out when I was 3. The Hokage felt bad for doubting the boy and asking him things he didn't want to recall, even though he was reassured that the person seated in front of him was the real Naruto. "I'm sorry, Naruto, but I had to make sure you weren't an imposter," he said in an apology to the boy. Naruto smiled and replied, "Don't worry about it, Gigi. Now back to the matter at hand. The Kyuubi has a name, Kurama. He is a friend of me." If the Hokage was shocked when Naruto revealed that he was aware of the Kyuubi, it was like being struck by a lightning bolt 1,000 times over. "Don't worry, Gigi. Kurama isn't manipulating me or anything. We are good friends now." I managed to remove the hatred from him. He recuperated slowly, but before he could say anything, Naruto interrupted, saying, "Oh, and by the way, I know that the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and the red hot-blooded Habanaro, Kushina Uzumaki, are my parents." That was the final nail in the 3rd Hokage's coffin. At that moment, he passed out. "Kurama, did I take it a bit too quickly?" inquired Naruto. "With so much stupidity in you, I don't know how you get people to like you," Kurama retorted. Naruto said, "Hey, I am not an idiot." Kurama said, "Live with it, now wake the 3rd Hokage, and if you can't, let me speak to the old man." "All right," Naruto said, "don't get worked up over my lack of social skills." "Idiocy can only be excused as a lack of social skills," Kurama chuckled. After several minutes and much effort, Naruto was able to awaken the 3rd Hokage. "Don't worry, Gigi. I am not angry with my parents. In fact, I am proud of them, and now, I am even more encouraged to surpass them. And I am sure that they are proud of me too," Naruto said as the 3rd Hokage attempted to speak after waking up. After expressing relief, the Hokage questioned, "Naruto, how do you know about all of this?" "Simple, I am a time traveler," Naruto retorted, and began recounting the events of his earlier timeline. Kurama warned him not to omit any details. He therefore told the 3rd Hokage everything, including how his cherished pupil Orochimaru killed him. Finally, after hearing everything, the 3rd Hokage asked, "So basically, in the other timeline, you graduated the academy after stealing the Scroll of Seals or the Forbidden Scroll, learning a forbidden jutsu and beating the traitor Mizuki with it. Then saved the Wave Country from the businessman Gato. Got a bridge named after you. Beat sense into a stuck-up Hyuga prodigy. Beat Shukaku the Ichibi, beat sense into its Jinchuriki. Tried to risk your life to prevent a friend from defecting and turning into a missing nin. Went on a 3-year training trip with Jiraiya of the Sannin. Brought the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi back alive as soon as you returned, then fought Pain, who was a former student of Jiraiya, bat him and knocked some sense into him and brought everyone who had died in the attack back to life, mastered the Sage Mode, completed your father's jutsu, managed to separate the chakra of Kyuubi, managed to befriend the Kyuubi and gained a new chakra cloak and finally managed to get the Sage of 6 Paths chakra before traveling back in time?" Naruto said with a poker face, "Yep, that sums it up, Gigi." "I think so," the 3rd Hokage said. This time, Naruto was the one who was taken by surprise. "You believe me? Why?" he asked. The Hokage responded, "When you told me about everything that happened, I saw emotions in your eyes that can never be impersonated. I saw the joy, the sadness, the guilt, the determination in your eyes that screamed out loud that you were not telling any lies. So I believe you, Naruto. But I still ask you, do you really trust the fox?" "Thank you, Gigi, for believing in me," Naruto said, shedding a tear. "As for your question, yes, Kurama is my friend and comrade. So, I trust him." The Hokage, upon hearing this, responded, "If you trust the fox, then I will too. But, why tell me all of this? What can I do now? What should I do now? Who else will you reveal this information to?" "One question at a time, Gigi. I told you all of this because, at the moment, I can trust only you and you alone. All you need to do is help me with my training to get stronger. When certain, unfruitful events are going to happen, I will inform you. Then you can make the right decisions to prevent them. I definitely want to reveal this information to Pervy Sage. I am not going to let the only person I can consider as family to die again. Then I am going to reveal this to Granny Tsunade. Kakashi-sensei will know, but only after I pay him back after the graduation. That is all," Naruto replied. "Alright, Naruto, I will lend you my full support. Now what help do you need from me?" replied the Hokage. After hearing the time-travel tale, the old man was not surprised when Naruto responded, "I need to know about different elemental manipulation training and advanced chakra control exercises. I have already mastered tree walking and water walking exercises." Taking a chakra paper from his desk, he handed it to Naruto and said, "I suppose you know what to do." "Yep, Gigi," Naruto said with a foxy smile. He directed a portion of his chakra into the chakra paper. 4 pieces were cut out of the chakra paper. Each of the 4 pieces burned into ashes. The first became soaked, the second crumbled into dust, and the third crumpled up. The Hokage now had the strongest belief in Naruto because this was the evidence he needed to accept that he was a true time traveler. He inquired, "I suppose you get these affinities from your mother and father?" Replied that, "No, I actually had only wind affinity. I got the water from Sanbi, fire from Nibi, and lightning and earth from Sage of 6 Paths chakra." Naruto said, "I learn a couple of jutsus of each elements. They are either C rank or D rank, but most are C rank. I need more elemental manipulation exercises to learn higher rank jutsus." "Alright, Naruto, come with me. We'll get you the best instructors so that you can get adequate training to change the future." The Hokage responded to Naruto at this point. Suddenly, Naruto spoke. "Oh no. No. Gigi. Remember, I am still the village pariah. I haven't gained their respect yet. Besides, it would be best if I trained by myself. Because, I will soon start practicing on using Kurama's chakra, since my younger body is not used to it yet." "Alright Naruto, if you say so. Now, I will give you some scrolls on advanced chakra control and elemental manipulation. After you master them, I will give you scrolls on higher ranked jutsus," the Hokage replied. Naruto replied, "Add a scroll on intermediate fuinjutsu Gigi. I have already mastered the basics, looks like you inherited your parents' art." "Alright Naruto. I will add that scroll too. Do you need anything else?" The Hokage laughed at this. "Actually, there is a favor I need from you Gigi," Naruto said after giving it some thought. The Hokage inquired, "What is it Naruto?" He responded, "I will find it almost impossible to hide my talents and act like a dead last this time around. Besides, I can't act like a fanboy to Sakura who was like a sister to me in the previous timeline. So, I will have to change this time. It won't be a surprise if I turn out to be the rookie of the year. But, it will help in getting Sasuke to become friend with me and I will get a chance to save him early on itself. So, I request you to make sure I get placed with the same team. Mates and Jonin Sensei as last time, Gigi." The Hokage was taken aback by the blonde boy's display of maturity. He wasn't surprised, though, because he was a time traveler. He then replied, "Alright Naruto. I will make sure to keep the teams the same as last time." "When will you give me the scrolls Gigi?" Naruto asked after thanking the Hokage. "Come here by this time tomorrow, Naruto," the Hokage said. "I will get you all the scrolls." Naruto thanked him once more and turned to go when the Hokage called him. "I am proud of you, Naruto," the Hokage said with a sincere smile, and Naruto gave him his signature foxy grin and a thumbs up before leaving. The third Hokage then returned to his impossible tasks, fighting and completing the paperwork. The Hokage's tower the following day. When Naruto arrived at the Hokage's office to pick up the scrolls, he discovered that the Hokage was occupied with paperwork, but as soon as he saw him, he set aside the paperwork and took 7 scrolls from his desk, setting them on the table before grinning and saying, "Here are the scrolls for your training, Naruto. Each month, I will review your progress. After that, we will determine the best course of action for your training. I'll now take you to your private training space. It's Area 37 for training. Only you have been given it. No one can stop you from using the Kyuubi's chakra. I should also demonstrate the exercises for you. We need a demonstration. Shall we depart now?" "You are the best Gigi," Naruto declared, flashing his biggest foxy grin. "We can't afford to waste any more time. Now let's go." With a small laugh, the third Hokage rose from his chair and escorted Naruto to the training area to start his more rigorous training. At the covert practice area, after guiding the third Hokage to the remote location behind the Hokage monument, Naruto declared, "We are here, Gigi. My secret .so. Secret training location." The third laughed at this. "Gigi, what's so funny? It's odd that you would pick the same location where all the previous Hokages trained," the blonde said, to which the Hokage responded. "The flying Raijin was mastered by your father. I was taught by the first and the second Hokage at the same grounds, Naruto." Naruto was ecstatic to learn that this ground had been used by previous Hokages, but he suppressed the urge to leap with delight and instead said, "Well, add another Hokage to the list Gigi," with his signature foxy grin. The orange Hokage from Konoha also trained here. The third Hokage grinned at the boy's excitement and delight before saying, "Alright, Naruto, should I show you the exercises?" "Gigi, of course," the blonde said, "but can you complete all the exercises, Gigi?" asked the boy. "Naruto, I had to practice a lot, but now I can use all 5 basic releases," the Hokage said. "Alright, Naruto, let's start by manipulating fire. Start by directing your chakra into a leaf that you are holding. Add your imagination to the chakra and visualize it heating up. After mastering this, you go over to a small body of water, like a puddle or something bigger, but not too big, and try to vaporize it with your chakra. Then, burn the leaf with the help of it, the third said, performing the same action. You will have mastered the fire manipulation once you are able to accomplish that, he said, demonstrating it on a large pool of water. The water manipulation comes next. Making a small amount of water into a sphere with your chakra and channeling it into the water while visualizing it molding into the desired shape is the first step in the elemental manipulation training for the water element. As he demonstrated it, the Hokage said, it would be best to make it a sphere for a start. Once you master that, you have to do the same with a large body of water, like a pond, but not into a single sphere but multiple ones, he said, adding that he had done so himself. The highest anyone has been able to do was about 75, by the second Hokage, who had the strongest water affinity among all shinobi, which allowed him to draw water from the moisture in the air. Naruto was amazed by this and wondered if he could do it too, since he had Aisapu's chakra as well. The manipulation of the earth element follows. The first step is to take a small rock and use your chakra to make it crumble. The third said, it is the same principle as the rest, and went on to demonstrate it. Then, after mastering it, you do the same with a big boulder, he added, as he himself did. The next step is to manipulate the lighting elements. You must channel your chakra into it by taking a leaf. It will burn and crumple like the chakra paper. It requires you to visualize that you are channeling lightning. As he demonstrated, the old man said, once you have mastered that, you must use your lightning chakra to cut a log. After that, the chakra will do its job. The Hokage repeated, that's the last step, as he proceeded, and then questioned the blonde boy. I assume you're familiar with wind manipulation training? Naruto cheerfully answered, yep Gigi. I'll start working as soon as you get me that waterfall. What about more complex exercises for chakra control? Calm down, Naruto. I'll tell you about them. But first, you need the waterfall, he said, performing some hand seals and shouting, Earth release. Earth-style rampart, which caused a massive wall of earth to rise. Then the old man said, water release, water basin jutsu, which caused a waterfall to appear. He performed the same jutsu once more, and a larger one appeared beside it. Finally, he told Naruto, the bigger one is for your wind manipulation training. The smaller one is for your exercise on chakra control. You must use your chakra to run up and down the waterfall. It's very similar to the water walking workout. The next step up. Then, with waiters strapped to you, ascend and descend the wall between the waterfalls. Increase the weights gradually. It will boost your already enormous chakra quantity and stamina in addition to helping you control them. Naruto was so thrilled that he created hand seals for his favorite jutsu and exclaimed, Shadow Clone Jutsu. A moment later, 700 shadow clones surrounded the blonde boy and the elderly Hokage. He continued by saying, alright, split yourselves into 7 groups and get to work on the exercises, while one group works on the intermediate Fuinjutsu scroll. The army of shadow clones dutifully obeyed the command and set to work. Gigi, since I know who my parents are, is there anything that they left behind for me, you know, like for memories? Naruto asked, glancing at his grandfatherly figure. Actually yes, Naruto. Come to my office tomorrow. I will give them to you, the Hokage replied. In response, the blonde said, thanks Gigi, I will come tomorrow. But why tomorrow? Why not now? The third Hokage said, don't worry, it has nothing to do with your story. I need some time to think over some things. Okay, Gigi. I will visit your office tomorrow morning, Naruto smiled in response. Then, as the original Naruto began climbing the wall while wearing weights, the Hokage left the area. The office of the Hokage the following day. The door to the Hokage's office suddenly flew open as a certain blonde boy with whiskers made a very dramatic, for his age, entrance. The Hokage was sitting behind his desk, thinking. He grinned at the boy's antics and said, Naruto, you have to stop destroying the door to my office. You know me Gigi, I just can't help it. Guess, I picked it from Pervy. Sage, the blonde said with a foxy smile. The Hokage said, Pervy. Sage? Naruto remarked, you know, Jiraiya, the Toad Sage and my godfather. The Hokage laughed and remarked, what a nickname. He looked at the room's hidden ANBUs and said, well, then, let's get back to the work in hand. ANBUs if you will. The Hokage was about to activate the privacy seals after the ANBUs left the room when Naruto interrupted him, pointing to one of the office's corners and saying, Gigi, I suggest you send that root agent away too. When the aforementioned agent realized he had just been apprehended, he fled. How did you know that he was there, Naruto? Even I couldn't sense him, the Hokage asked after experiencing a range of emotions. Replied Naruto, one of the powers of Kurama is that I can sense negative emotions, and there was a ton of it rolling off that guy. I guess Danzo is up to his tricks again. I just can't stop him without reliable clues, the Hokage sighed. Well, I'll let you and Sage handle him, Gigi. Now, can we get back to work? Asked the kid. With a nod, the Hokage turned on the privacy seals. Then he stood up and approached the fourth Hokage's portrait. He cut his thumb slightly, drew blood, and then pressed the thumb against the portrait's frame. After a few seconds, the portrait rose, exposing a tiny storage area with 4 scrolls and a few documents. After taking everything out of the tiny storage area and setting it on his desk, he locked the area once more. Well, Naruto, these are the things that your parents left behind for you. I will explain about them one by one, he said, turning to face the boy with the blonde hair who was observing everything with great interest. He opened 2 relatively small scrolls and said, these are the letters that your parents wrote to you. I wouldn't exactly say wrote, because Minato developed some kind of seal that when channeled with chakra could create writings on anything the user was thinking. Your parents used it when they were about to die. Naruto accepted it from him with a single tear in his eye. This is the scroll that your mother left behind. It contains most of the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, he said, pointing to a scroll with the Uzumaki swirl on it. However, I suggest you don't try them until you have mastered the intermediate, advanced, and master Fuinjutsu. He then handed him a second scroll and said, this Naruto, belonged to your father. This scroll contains the secret of Rasengan and your father's most famous jutsu, the Flying Raijin. All 4 scrolls need your blood to open. This Naruto is the documents to all the properties that your parents owned, he said after he had taken the papers. Naruto gaped openly at this. Now Naruto, you didn't think that the most famous Hokage and the most famous Kunoichi didn't own anything, did you? The Hokage asked with a laugh. Your parents left behind one house, a couple of million ryo in the banks of Konoha and some other property, said the man. At this, Naruto could only gape. 2 or 3 million ryo? Just think of all the ramen he could purchase. He wouldn't consume excessive amounts of ramen. He had made a vow to his mother that he would limit his intake of ramen. Naruto then turned to the Hokage and replied, Gigi, I will just take the letters for now. Please keep all the documents and the rest of the scrolls with you for safekeeping. I won't shift to my parents' house until I am old enough and earn the respect of Konoha. The Hokage felt a great sense of pride just by looking at the boy. He continued, all right Naruto, I will keep them with me until you take them back. The Hokage yelled, wait Naruto, we are not finished yet. We still have things to discuss, just as Naruto was ready to get up and depart with the 2 scrolls. Despite his perplexed expression, Naruto sat down. I was thinking on what you told me 2 days ago. Naruto, I want you to act as the class dead. Last again, the 3rd Hokage responded. Naruto simply stared at the elderly gentleman and yelled. What? The 3rd Hokage responded. You see Naruto, you yourself told me that most of the fights you won were because you were considered an underdog. This time, you are very strong. So, if you keep the facade of being the dead last, you will have a massive advantage over your opponents. That is why I want you to do that. And besides, you don't want to change the future drastically to prevent us from predicting it, do you? After giving it some thought, Kurama said, the Hokage is right, Kit. We don't want to alter the timeline so much that it becomes impossible for us to predict. Thus, accept his recommendation. All right, Furball, just don't press on it, was Naruto's mental response. He called out to the elderly gentleman, all right Gigi, but I won't go chasing after Sakura this time around. How long should I keep the mask on? The Hokage responded, all right Naruto, you don't need to chase after the girl. As for your question, I suggest until Chunin exams. Naruto responded, are you serious Gigi? Chunin exams? By then, I will have had broken down, trying to hide my true self? Naruto, by then, you will have gained massive advantage by hiding your true powers, the Hokage said with a simple smile. Naruto pondered the matter and replied, if you say so Gigi. Anything else? The Hokage responded, yes, when are you revealing the truth to the others you mentioned? Naruto responded, I will inform Sage after he begins training me. That is, after the preliminary rounds of the Chunin exam finals. Kakashi-sensei has to wait till after the exams are over since I have a lot to get even on with him. Granny Tsunade will get to know once we bring her back. That is all. That's all, Naruto. You can go now, the Hokage said after accepting the response. Okay, bye Gigi. I have a lot to train for and on, the blonde said with a smile as he stood up. Naruto then went to the door, but before he could return to his training, he paused, turned to face the Hokage, and asked, "You know Gigi, have you ever tried shadow clones to do the paperwork for you?" At what the boy had said, the Hokage could only gape and curse his own foolishness. Behind the Hokage monument at the training ground. After arriving at the training area, Naruto created 700 shadow clones and sent them to work on the exercises. Along with the 2 scrolls his parents had left him as letters, the original was perched beneath a rather large tree. He smudged a drop of his blood on the scroll his father had left behind and cut his thumb slightly. The scroll was folded, and intricate seal patterns appeared on it before disappearing completely, signifying that the seal had been opened. He pulled it open and began to read. "Greetings, Naruto, you are either a Chunin, a Jonin, or you have already identified your parents if you were reading this. If the former, I am your father, and I am writing this letter to you, not exactly. I am Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage of Konohagakure and the Yellow Flash of Konoha, in case you were wondering who I was. You must be very amazed that the 4th Hokage is your father, or you must be very upset with me for enclosing the Kyuubi within you. You have every right to be upset with me, so I genuinely hope it's the latter. If it's the former, I don't want to say anything. If a Hokage asks to sacrifice someone else's child but is unable to sacrifice his own, what kind of Hokage is he? I sincerely hope you will pardon me and understand my situation. I apologize, my son, for casting an unforgivable curse upon you. Since you will also have the letter your mother left if you have this letter, I won't tell you who she is. Kushina Uzumaki is the name I will give you, at most. She is your mother, and she is the most lovely thing that has ever happened to me. I'm writing you this letter to let you know what transpired on the day of your birth. To begin with, Naruto, you are not the first person to imprison the Kyuubi. The first jailer was Mito Uzumaki's wife, the first Hokage. Your mother, yes, your own mother, was the second. Due to unfortunate circumstances, you are the third. The fact that every jailer is Uzumaki is odd, isn't it? Let's go back to what transpired. A female Jinchuriki's seal weakens during childbirth, which makes it possible for the imprisoned beast to break out. Because of this, the third Hokage, Lord, made plans to ensure that you were born outside the village walls and in the safest possible conditions. Nevertheless, a masked man going by the name Madara somehow obtained the information about your mother's whereabouts during childbirth. He was also aware that giving birth weakens the seal. He attacked the village that night, October 10th, the night you were born, and was able to free the Kyuubi from your mother. She survived the extraction due to her Uzumaki ancestry. The village was attacked by the Kyuubi. The damage had already been done when I finally defeated the man in the mask. Kushina asked me to seal the Kyuubi back in her, but I had a hunch that the masked man would come back, so I had to take action. Son, I had to put a stop to it. I think you'll be able to control the Kyuubi eventually. I am aware of that. The most memorable day of our lives was the day your mother and I learned we were expecting a child. The thought of having a miniature version of ourselves running around the house made us very happy. We had fantasized about having a great time. In our dreams, we would have taken you to the Ninja Academy, brought you back, trained you, taught you new things, celebrated your birthday, found you the right girl, and watched you develop. However, none of those materialized. Our only regret in life is that we were unable to support you, son. But keep in mind that you are loved and will always be loved by us. Develop into a fine young man and a fine shinobi. Find your life's purpose and your dream. You want to be the Hokage, I'm pretty sure. So keep in mind, son, that the village is illuminated by the shadow of the fire. Namikaze Minato, your most cherished and affectionate father. By this point, Naruto was about to cry. He was on the edge of tears when he read that his parents had created so many dreams for him. Reading about his father's emotions was incomprehensible to him, even though he was aware of what had transpired that fateful night. Don't worry, Dad. I'll see to it that you're proud of me. The Kyuubi is not under my control. Instead, Kurama and I collaborate, Dad. We're allies. And trust me, I'll beat the man in the mask this time, he told himself. After safely setting the scroll aside, he picked up the one his mother had left for him, opened it, and began reading it just as he had done with the first one. Greetings, Naruto. The letter is being written to you by your mother. I am Kushina Uzumaki, the 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze's wife and a red-hot-blooded habanero. I'm fairly certain Minato has told you about everything that happened that evening. Thus, I will not elaborate further. Never forget that your father and I will always love you, son. Make us proud. Develop your strength and become a proud shinobi. Follow in your father's footsteps and become a hero by becoming the Hokage. Eat a lot to get big and strong, don't be picky, every day, take a bath, get into bed early, and get a good night's sleep. Practice your ninjutsu diligently. I was never very good at it, but perhaps you will be. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses, so don't get too down if things don't work out. Pay attention to your instructors at the academy. Become friends. It doesn't matter how many. What matters is that they are trustworthy individuals. A handful is sufficient. According to the 3 prohibitions of the shinobi, you should be cautious when lending and borrowing money, save your mission pay carefully, and refrain from drinking alcohol until you are 20 years old because too much of it is bad for your health. Regarding girls, well, I'm a girl, so I'm not really sure what to say, but it's normal to want a girlfriend eventually. Just don't fall for a stranger. Instead, look for someone like me. Oh, and be on the lookout for Jiraiya-sensei, Databane. You have a godfather named Jiraiya. There will be difficult and agonizing times ahead, Naruto, so look after yourself. Find a dream or a goal, and keep trying until you achieve it. I want to spend more time with you because I love you and I have so much more to teach and tell you. Thank you for allowing me to be your mother, Naruto, and for being born into our family, Minato, for being your father. Uzumaki Kushina, your most cherished and cherished mother. Naruto was now crying aloud. You don't have to repeat it, but I will eat a lot of food, including vegetables. Don't worry, Mom. I'll study diligently and take a bath every day. I'm going to make lots of friends. Don't worry, I've learned everything there is to know about the 3 shinobi prohibitions from Pervy. Sage. Despite her shyness, I have already found the ideal girlfriend. He assured himself, and don't worry, I will overcome the difficulties because I am the son of the 4th Hokage and the red hot blooded habanero. After dispelling the clones and grabbing the scrolls, he began to make his way back to his apartment. The apartment of Naruto. The letters rocked Naruto to his very core. It was because they loved him so much, not because they were shocked. The joy he had experienced upon reading the letters had shaken him. He was aware that it would be pointless to continue training that day. He had returned to his apartment after scattering his clones. Before he noticed anything in his mother's letter, he read the letters numerous times over. After reading the letter 6 times, he realized it was a storage seal. After a few seconds, the seal opened to reveal a necklace, 2 shinobi headbands, and a haori after he directed some chakra into it. Additionally, it was the 4th Hokage haori, the same one his father wore. He guessed right. The necklace was unquestionably his mother's, and the headbands belonged to his parents. He was aware of it since he had first seen it on her in his mindscape when he first met her. The word, happy, would be an understatement. Something that had belonged to his parents was finally given to him. Their presents to him. A beloved necklace and a legendary haori. Naruto was so ecstatic that he was practically jumping around his apartment. He had a constant smile on his face the entire time he slept that night. An authentic, heartfelt grin. 6 months later, Naruto had accomplished a great deal in the 6 months. He had mastered the exercises involving wind manipulation, cutting leaves as well as cutting waterfalls. He was also very good at manipulating water. Using a small amount of water, he had no trouble mastering the sphere. However, he took a while to master the second section. He finally mastered it after 3 months, and he was now able to create up to 50 spheres. The 2 exercises came naturally to him, so he mastered them with ease. Earth was the next element manipulation exercise he had perfected. He had completed the first section more quickly than it had taken him to complete the first water manipulation step. However, it took much longer to master the second exercise. However, he could now use his chakra to crush a boulder twice his size. In 2 and 4 months, respectively, he had successfully completed the lightning exercises. Cutting the log was difficult, but crumpling the leaves was simple. However, he eventually became proficient in it. He found the fire manipulation exercise to be the most challenging. Since fire was his least favorite element, burning the leaf required a great deal of focus on his part. He would have collapsed within a week of starting his training if he hadn't gone through the sage training in the prior timeline. However, he was able to finish the leaf burning exercise without any problems after 3 months. He needed 3 months to complete the second exercise as well, but he handled it well because he had to evaporate a body of water. The waterfall walking exercise was something he had perfected. He could now perform it unconsciously without even realizing it. In addition, he had perfected wall walking and raised the boulder's weight to match his own. His already enormous amount of chakra had increased as a result. However, the increase was minimal in comparison to what he had. But because of all the exercises, his stamina had grown significantly. He had also rapidly improved his fuinjutsu skills. He had mastered the intermediate fuinjutsu scroll completely. He could now create his own flashbang notes, exploding notes, and storage scrolls. The growth of his own body, however, was the most noticeable development. He had begun eating more healthful foods in accordance with his mother's advice. Naturally, In order to obtain the items without going over budget, he had to employ the transformation technique. Evidently, his growth had been impeded by a lot of ramen the previous time. He had thus limited his ramen consumption to 2 bowls per day. 1 pork and 1 miso. His height was now appropriate for his age, and his muscles were beginning to show. Following all of this, he also began practicing the use of Kurama's chakra. He had used the simple chakra cloak with ease. He hadn't perfected the 2 and 3 tailed chakra cloaks, but he had mastered the 1 to 3 tailed one after much practice. Without much thought, he was able to form 1 chakra hand in his 1 tailed chakra cloak state. But he needed to concentrate more to achieve more. He was limited to 5 chakra hands when in the 1 to 3 tailed chakra cloak states. That was more than sufficient. Naruto was now making his way to the Hokage's workspace. In between, he had visited frequently for informal visits and to pick up subtle hints. Now, however, he was going to retrieve the next set of scrolls and return the 7. Office of the Hokage. The door exploded open, revealing a hyperactive blonde who asked, "Hey Gigi, how are you?" No matter how many times the old man saw him, the boy never stopped making him laugh. The Hokage was reading a small stack of papers while his 6 shadow clones went over and worked on 6 large stacks of papers and documents. "I'm fine, Naruto. Now, what brings you here?" he responded. He put 1 scroll on the Hokage's table and said, "Well, I finished all the scrolls and here they are." "Naruto, I thought you said 7 scrolls. Where are the other 6? The old man asked, raising an eyebrow at this point. Naruto smiled and simply took the scroll, opened it, and channeled some chakra into it, causing a tiny puff of smoke to appear. 7 scrolls were neatly stacked in front of the Hokage when the smoke cleared. "I have mastered every one of those scrolls," he added. "I suppose you are here for the next set of scrolls?" the elderly man said with a simple smile. The statement, "that and a little something else too, Gigi," was made by Naruto with a somewhat solemn expression. Office of the Hokage continued. Observing the boy's facial expression, the 3rd Hokage deduced that he intended for them to speak in complete seclusion. He then gestured for the ANBUs present to leave, and they did so right away. After a year, they had grown accustomed to the fact that if the blonde boy looked serious, it was time to leave the Hokage's office. Though not literally, even the root agents were aware that the boy would always find their hiding place and expel them. Thus, they also departed. Naruto then verified that they were the only 2 there, and the Hokage activated the privacy seals. "Alright, Naruto, what are the something else too?" he asked. "Okay Gigi, to put it bluntly, 6 months from now, there will only be 3, but if you count the dead yet alive Madara, then 4 Uchihas alive," he responded. The 3rd Hokage yelled, "WHAAT?" completely losing all sense of his age, rank, grace, experience, and everything else. Naruto bluntly retorted, "Ouch, Gigi, don't scream that loud. Seriously, even I will go deaf." "I apologize, Naruto. It was such a big surprise that I did not know how to react. So, would you please care to elaborate?" the Hokage said after attempting to regain his composure. Seeing the confusion apparent on the old man's face, he replied, "I did say that, to put it bluntly." Anyway, back in the last timeline, the Uchihas were planning a coup because they were being distanced by the village after they were accused of unleashing the Kyuubi, though not vocally. This led to a very bad turn of events which eventually led to the planned coup. Hearing of this, no 2 Uchihas, Itachi and Shisui, informed you about all this. You then ordered them to somehow stop them through words, and definitely not through the use of force. When it was finally established that words won't work, Shisui, who was a pacifist, fell into depression. Taking advantage of this, Danzo fought against him and stole his right Sharingan eye which had evolved into the Mangekyo. So, to prevent him from gaining both of the eyes and unlocking its true potential, he gave his left eye to Itachi and then committed suicide, destroying his body in the process and unlocking Itachi's Mangekyo. But when Itachi found out the same thing, he asked permission from you to allow him to assassinate all the elders who were planning this coup. You gave explicit permission to do so only and leave the rest alone. But Danzo manipulated the order by giving Itachi only 2 choices. Either kill all of the Uchihas or kill all but Sasuke. Itachi, being probably the best brother one could have, chose the latter and killed all but him, pushing Sasuke into the pit of revenge, turning him into a bigger monster than Danzo in the process until he reformed after learning about the cycle of hatred from you and the rest of the Hokages after being released from the stomach of the Shinigami. Itachi then joined Akatsuki and became the inner spy working for Master Jiraiya. That sums it up, Gigi. With an extremely thoughtful expression on his face, the Hokage simply sat there. He had already been told about the coup and given orders to Itachi and Shisui in the first section. The rest, however, had not yet happened. He still didn't understand, though, why Danzo would order a total massacre. "Gigi, you with me?" Naruto interrupted his thoughts. "Yes, Naruto, it's just that you gave a little too much information to take in at the same time," the elderly man said with a faint laugh. "But, why would Danzo order complete massacre?" Replied, "Actually, he will still 10 other Sharingan eyes and implant them into his right eye, which will also contain the cells of the first Hokage. He really did go down a dark path in the quest of power. The only consolation is that he did all of those for the sake of the village." The Hokage responded, "Yes, Naruto, Danzo is probably the most loyal Konoha shinobi. Maybe even more so than me. But, his methods are too dark and extreme. That is why I don't agree with him. Hopefully, we might be able to prevent all of those from happening. So, do you have anything else to say?" "Nope, that's all, Gigi. I just hope that Sasuke does not go down the same dark path once again. Now, can we get to my training part?" replied the brunette. When the topic of training used to come up, the boy would get so excited that the Hokage would laugh. He inquired, "All right, Naruto, how far have you come with your training?" The blonde replied, "Well, Gigi, I have completely mastered wind and water manipulation exercises. I have also got down the rest, though barely. I have completed the 2 chakra control exercises you told me about. So now, my chakra control is at mid Chunin, because of my even increased amount of chakra. Kurama says that the best I can get at chakra control would be mid Jonin. Luckily, he says that, by then, I will be able to throw a Rasen Shuriken from each of my hands. I have also mastered the advanced Fuinjutsu and can make my own storage scrolls, exploding notes, flashbang notes, and am working on paralysis seals. As you can see, thanks to Mom's advice, my physical growth has also been accelerated. Last time, I was 13 when I had this kind of body. I have mastered the basic chakra cloak and one-tailed chakra cloak. In this state, I can form and throw the Rasen Shuriken, though an extremely weak one. I have also managed to control 2- and 3-tailed state. I am not going to try 4 tails or more until I master the 2- and 3-tailed state. That sums it up, Gigi." He finished up with a big foxy grin. The boy in front of him made the old man proud. He had been informed that Naruto had been viewed as a failure in the previous timeline. However, the reality was far from that. He wasn't properly thought of. This time, the boy was accomplishing in months what most Jonins would take years to accomplish thanks to his perseverance and knowledge of the previous timeline. There is nothing he could be more proud of, and he would use all of this to build a better future this time. He therefore desired for Naruto to improve and become stronger. He then stated, "You are doing excellent, Naruto. I want you to completely master all of the chakra control exercises to be able to do them subconsciously and master the elemental manipulation exercises to such a point where you can do it in a whim." "Ah, come on, Gigi. Give me some more cool new moves," the boy said in frustration as his shoulders slumped. The Hokage laughed and responded, "Yes, Naruto, but do you know why I want you to do so? It is because, if you master all of those exercises, the strength of all your jutsus will be increased considerably. And, yes, I will give you some jutsu scrolls too." At this, Naruto became ecstatic. The boy's abrupt change in attitude startled the Hokage. Then he entered the Hokage's archives through the door behind his desk. He eventually emerged holding a few scrolls, which he set on his desk. He continued, "Okay, Naruto, here are 6 jutsus, 1 for each element and 1 Shunshin jutsu. I can't give you any more scrolls on Fuinjutsu because you need a seal master to learn more. Unfortunately, the only one who is up to the mark, if not brilliant, to teach you is away. So, you have to put Fuinjutsu on hold for now. But, you can experiment with what you know. I am giving you permission because, knowing you, you would experiment anyway. Now, get to the scrolls. Once you learn it, I will evaluate how far you have come. Is that okay with you?" "Gigi, you are forgetting who you are talking to. I, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, will never back down. Within the next 6 months, you will be fighting me, Gigi. And trust me, you will not be able to take a breather when you go up against me," the kid replied with an infectious grin. The Hokage laughed and said, "Oh, don't get arrogant, Naruto. I am not Hokage for nothing." The blonde sealed all 6 scrolls to an empty scroll and walked away, saying, "Okay, Gigi, I will get going. You truly will become a Hokage one day, Naruto." As he created some shadow clones and resumed his work, the Hokage thought, "The will of fire definitely burns bright in you." Behind the Hokage monument is a training ground. After sitting down, Naruto removed the sealing scroll and opened all of the scrolls inside. After that, He took each one individually to determine which jutsu it was. The first was the body flicker jutsu, also known as shunshin jutsu. The user would concentrate a lot of chakra on their legs and then launch themselves through a prearranged path at a speed that was nearly impossible to see without the Sharingan or possibly the Byakugan. However, the chakra allowed the user to be sensed. For the jutsu, he made 50 shadow clones and sent them to practice. The earth release, multiple earth style wall jutsu was the next type of earth release jutsu. With this jutsu, the practitioner would create several earthen walls by directing his chakra into the ground. It was a powerful jutsu technique. He created 50 more clones and sent them to practice jutsu. The water release, water formation wall jutsu, a water style jutsu, came next. In order to create a wall of water surrounding themselves, the user of this jutsu poured chakra into the surrounding water. The amount of chakra the user poured into the water determined how strong the wall was. 50 clones were sent by Naruto to learn the jutsu. The next jutsu was called wind release, drilling air bullet, and it was a wind style jutsu. In order to perform this jutsu, the practitioner would infuse a lot of wind into their body while directing their own chakra into it. The wind would then be released by the user as a compressed wind bullet. The compressed bullet's high chakra content caused it to explode upon contact, inflicting massive damage. 50 clones were sent by Naruto to practice the jutsu. The next was lightning release, conductive shock jutsu, which was a lightning style jutsu. It was a form of jutsu where the practitioner would bind the adversary with ninja wires and use lightning to shock and paralyze the target. 50 clones were sent to work on it by him. The final one was fire release, flame bullet, a fire style jutsu. It was a chakra created jutsu where the practitioner accumulates oil in their mouth. After that, the user would spit it out, light it, and produce a flame bullet. To work on it, Naruto dispatched 50 more clones. Consequently, 300 clones began working on jutsus. After that, he sent 50 clones to the training area for each elemental manipulation exercise. After that, he created 100 more clones to practice chakra control techniques and another 100 to practice basic and intermediate fuinjutsu. Following all of this, he began practicing his taijutsu. However, he had encountered an obstacle with it. Although there were many flaws in his previous style, it was incredibly effective. In order to better fit him, he had to start making improvements and adding more style. Locating Gai Sensei was the best way to obtain reliable information about taijutsu. His taijutsu skills were unquestionable, despite the fact that everyone had to wonder if the spandex wearing elite Jonin was sane. With just his taijutsu, he was able to push copy ninja Kakashi to the limit. He was therefore the best guide. As his clones began practicing the exercises and jutsus, the original Naruto went in search of him. Konoha's streets. Naruto had to acknowledge, it was difficult to locate the man if you needed him. And the accompanying frustration was absurd. He had been looking for the spandex clad taijutsu powerhouse for nearly an hour, and he had not found him. He was now questioning if he had asked the elderly Hokage for assistance. Then, as if at the exact moment, a shout about youth was heard. The blonde boy was thrilled by that. At last, he had located him. Naruto simply ran in the direction of the youth slogan's origin. He discovered Gai Sensei giving a talk about the flames of youth to some chunin. The chunin was on the verge of losing it. He appeared to be on the verge of losing it. In order to spare the chunin from the agony of Gai Sensei's flames of youth, Naruto hurried over to them. When Naruto approached the pair, the chunin saw him and gave him a fierce look. Although Naruto was aware of the glare, he ignored it because he assumed the chunin must have lost a loved one in the Kyuubi Kuma attack on the village. Gai Sensei turned to face the target after noticing that the chunin was glaring. Upon glancing at Naruto, he reached the same conclusion as Naruto and chose to ignore it. He knew that the blonde boy and the Kyuubi were two different people, and he had no ill will or hatred toward the boy. Together with the third Hokage, Kakashi Hitaki, Asuma Sarutobi, and the Hokage Guard platoon, which consisted of Genma Shiranui, Reido Namiyashi, and Iwashi Tatami, he was also one of the few individuals who were aware that the boy, Naruto, was the son of the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Even so, he was still hurt that he was powerless to help the boy who had been cursed without his knowledge. He was unaware, however, that Naruto was from the future and was aware of everything. As though meeting the green beast for the first time in his life, Naruto approached him and said, "Hey super fuzzy brows sensei. Are you Might Guy?" Unintentionally adding the sensei. "Yes boy. You have come to the beautiful green beast of Konoha. I am indeed the most youthful Might Guy. And you must be Naruto. May I ask what such a young and youthful boy like you want from me?" was Naruto's response, but he fell for it because Guy was one of the densest people he knew outside of himself. Gigi sent me to you. Can we talk somewhere else? Naruto responded, aware that his act had been successful. Guy deduced that when Naruto said, Gigi, he must have meant the third Hokage. He also deduced that Naruto wanted to go somewhere else because the people in the area were still glaring at him, albeit not very intensely because most of them were returning to their work. He responded by saying, of course my most youthful boy, let us go to Training Ground 9 as that is where I usually train. Both of them headed for Training Ground 9. Training Ground number 9. Now Naruto, what did you want to talk about? Guy asked Naruto as they arrived at the training grounds. Replied, Super Fuzzy Brows Sensei, I am going to start my academy days in a few months and I have been training hard for it. But in the field of taijutsu, I found no growth. So, I went to Gigi for help and he told me that you were the best taijutsu expert in Konoha and I should consult you. So, could you give me some tips? I am working on my own style, so please help me. Of course Naruto-kun, by all means. Now, show me what you have been working on. Let us move on from there. Now attack me with your style, Guy said, glancing at the boy and striking his nice guy pose. Guy assumed his combat position. Naruto said, all right, let's get started. Shadow Clone Jutsu, as he created his preferred hand seal and a few of his abilities appeared. It would be an understatement to say that Guy was stunned. Nobody had ever seen a 9-year-old boy perform a B-rank kinjutsu without showing the least hint of fatigue. Naruto-kun, where did you learn that jutsu? Guy asked after staring at the boy for a while. Naruto simply laughed and said, you see Super Fuzzy Brows Sensei, due to my condition, it is impossible for me to do the normal clone jutsu that is taught in the academy. And because of that, I knew that I would fail. So, I went to Gigi to find a solution to that problem. Gigi noticed that I had roughly 5 times as much chakra as him without consider that massive thing inside of me. Hey, you brat, I'm not a thing. So, he taught me the Shadow Clone Jutsu and I figured out its secret to use it in training, he concluded with the same smile. I am Kurama, the 9-tailed fox. For Guy, 2 facts were particularly noteworthy. The first was that the boy had more chakra than the Hokage, which basically meant that he was the most chakra-rich person in the village. The second was he was aware of the fox. In order to find out if the boy was aware of his heritage, he said in a low voice, so Naruto, do you know everything? Naruto understood what he was saying and replied, yes, Gigi told me everything including my heritage. If you live a life that was as harsh as mine, you will end up meeting the fox. And don't worry, he is still trapped, if you could say so. And also, I am not angry. I am happy that I protect this village that my father gave his life for and I will also do the same if the need be. Now, can we get to work? It was a complicated deception but Guy accepted it as well. Your flames of youth burn brighter than mine, Naruto-kun. Come, let us begin, said Guy, resuming his fighting stance after he had recovered from the shock and surprise. His words caused Naruto and his shadow clones to launch an all-out attack on him. It wasn't a very elegant look. However, it was very effective and unpredictable. However, after gaining a basic understanding of the blonde's fighting style, Guy quickly dispelled all of the clones and ordered him to stop. He continued, very youthful display of your taijutsu Naruto-kun. It perfectly suits you. Though it has a lot of chunks in it, it is highly unpredictable. Even I couldn't predict what you would do next. That is a big advantage for you. My experience won the fight for me as a matter of fact. There are some flaws in it, which can be ironed out. I will help you in any manner I can. You need to increase your speed and strength. Your stamina is not a problem at all. So, to increase your speed and strength, I suggest you get some weights. Can you get them? Naruto thought about it for a while and then replied, nah, I don't want to destroy myself. No offense Super Fuzzy Brows Sensei. Your training methods are a little extreme for me. I will not always be depending on taijutsu since I have ninjutsu. But can you help me with my moves and stuff? I will work on my speed and strength. Replied Guy, of course Naruto-kun. Now, I will get back to my duty as a leaf shinobi. Every Sunday, I will help you with your taijutsu. But since it is your own style, I can only iron out the flaws. Naruto grinned and said, that is all that I need Super Fuzzy Brows Sensei. But, please can you keep all of my abilities a secret? You do know that the village still fears me for my problem, and then suddenly if they come to know that I can pull off B-rank kinjutsus, they will fear me more than ever. I can live with the hatred, but I can't live with the people fearing me. He was asking Guy to do something. Guy simply looked at Naruto and felt a twinge of pain because the boy had grown up too much for his years because of the way the villagers had treated him. He appeared to be a nice guy and said, Don't worry Naruto-kun. I will not reveal your secret until you want me to or you show it yourself. I will not even tell my eternal rival Kakashi about you. Thanks Super Fuzzy Brows Sensei. See you later, Naruto said with a sincere smile upon hearing this. Then, behind the Hokage monument, he dashed off to his own training field. However, an Anbu wearing the weasel mask materialized in front of him as he was ready to depart. Naruto was aware that Itachi was the one wearing the weasel mask, but he said nothing. The Lord Hokage has asked for your presence, Naruto-kun, the Anbu said. Naruto was aware that Itachi had no animosity toward him. Rather, he was among the select few who honored his father's last desire to be viewed as a hero. Well then, take me there Anbu-san, he said. After placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder, the Anbu disappeared through Shunshin. The Tower of Hokage. The Anbu simply vanished shortly after Naruto was taken to the area outside the Hokage's office. Naruto therefore took the only action he knew how to take in that situation. With the largest smile he could muster, he kicked open the door, went into the Hokage's office, and said, "Hey Gigi, I heard from Weasel.san that you wanted to see me. What did you want?" The third Hokage gestured to the chair in front of his desk and said, "Well, take a seat, Naruto. How was your talk with Guy? Very wise of you to reveal neither too much nor too little." He walked over to the chair and said, "Good, Super Fuzzy Brows Sensei told me to go to him every Sunday. How did you know?" "Do you think I don't make good use of the crystal ball, Naruto?" the Hokage asked, chuckling slightly and gesturing to the crystal ball on his desk. Replied Naruto, "Actually, I thought that you used it to peep on women, since you read pervy sages' books." The mouth of the third Hokage simply dropped open. All he could do was gape at the boy's level of expertise. "Now, Naruto, let's forget about that. Come take a seat already," he said after gathering his thoughts. Naruto simply sneered and followed the Hokage's gesture to the chair. The Hokage triggered the privacy seals and waved the ANBUs in the room out. Seeing this, Naruto reasoned that Gigi must have wanted to speak with him because something significant had happened. When he finally arrived at his chair, he noticed that the Hokage was with someone else. "Gigi, what is Shikamaru doing here?" he asked the Hokage. "Only you would have the balls to call the God of Shinobi as Gigi," Shikamaru said after yawning slightly. "Naruto, I want to say that you are not alone," the Hokage said with a laugh. Naruto was becoming increasingly perplexed. "He meant that I am also from the future, genius," Shikamaru remarked upon seeing this. Naruto was at a loss for words. His thoughts were racing. Was there a joke here? Was this a dream of some sort? Or a delusion? Genjutsu? He made a ram seal and yelled, "Kai!" with a burst of chakra, thinking, yeah, it must be a genjutsu. However, nothing was altered. There was still the third Hokage. He was still seated next to Shikamaru. When Shikamaru saw Naruto's situation, he simply sealed his hand, and then a shadow appeared on Naruto's neck. As the blonde began to panic, he came to a realization. After a while, he stated as he released the, "If you remember right Naruto, I learnt this jutsu after the Chunin exams and when we after Sasuke. It was during the Sasuke retrieval mission that I used this jutsu for the first time against the genjutsu user Tayuya. I broke my finger with it." "Alright, Shikamaru, I believe you. But how did you come back? I mean, the last time I saw you in the battlefield, you were dead," said Naruto, who was now certain that Shikamaru was from the future. There was sadness in his voice. The office of the Hokage continued. The third Hokage spoke before Shikamaru could respond. "Actually, even I would like to know how you managed to come back. You have at present the chakra reserves at low to mid-Jonin level. But, that is definitely not enough to come back. And also, at what time exactly did you arrive to in the past?" Shikamaru let out a sigh and replied, "What a drag, but I'll tell you anyway. I was fighting along with Choji. Once he fell, I knew that I would join him soon too. So, I used all the exploding note and with my shadow stitching jutsu, I made a perimeter so that I would at least take away some of the enemy with me. The next thing I know is the explosion going off, Zetsu clones being blown apart and myself being cut down." He continued by sighing. "The next thing I remember is that I was floating in some kind of white space which I definitely was not expecting. I was expecting something like blue sky and clouds, or my parents, heck at least the troublesome girlfriend of mine. Then out of the blue, this old man with horns and Rinnegan eyes comes out of nowhere and asks me whether I wish to keep my promise. At first, I didn't know what to do, say or think. Then he told me which promise it was and told me that he was the sage of 6 paths. So, after thinking about it for a while, I said yes and here I am, 8 years in the past or present. I just arrived a week ago and I am already answering questions, what a drag." Naruto was taken aback, stunned, and dumbfounded, as was the third Hokage. He talks about it so casually, as if it were every day, about a man who had fought in a war, died during it, and was brought back to life by the Sage of Six Paths, who gave him the excuse that he wanted to keep his word. This man was undoubtedly too indolent to express his own feelings. They both started to perspire as soon as they arrived at the same conclusion. A very exciting and brief story there, Shikamaru. But how come you came back 8 years into the past whereas Naruto here came back 9 years? Asked the third Hokage. Recuperating from the fabled sloth of the Nara clan's heir? Naruto replied, actually, it would be best if I answer. The old man sage told me he would send us 8 years back too, but some of mine and Kurama's chakra leaked out during the process and we ended up 9 years into the past. Alright, that answers my question. Now, Shikamaru, do you have anything else to discuss? The third Hokage asked, taking in the information. Actually, yes there is. Naruto, what do you wish to about the future? Shikamaru retorted. I wish to change it, idiot, believe it, was Naruto's response. Shikamaru went on, that is not what I asked you about. What do you wish to do? There is the Uchiha massacre coming up. Then the graduation. Wave mission, Chunin exams and many stuff. What do you wish to do about them? Actually, now you mention it, I have no idea, Naruto replied, scratching the back of his head. At this point, the third Hokage and Shikamaru both started to perspire. This is the guy, the Sage of Six Paths, who chose to change the future. Both of them thought simultaneously. Now I understand why the Sage of Six Paths wanted me to return with him, Shikamaru sighed. What do you mean, Shikamaru? Asked Naruto, who didn't understand what Shikamaru had said. Replied Shikamaru, Naruto, you may be many things. Strong, determined, inspiring, miraculous. But, genius, witty, tactful, strategist aren't one of them. So, you need someone to help you. That is the reason why I am here, or so it seems. Okay Shikamaru, as I once told you, leave all the fighting and physical work to me. You do what you do best. Use your intelligence to come up with a plan to make the best use of my powers, Naruto said, acknowledging what Shikamaru had told him. Shikamaru grinned at this and replied, that I will Naruto. But, this time, even I will get stronger. I can't laze off somewhere and let my friends and family die. A strong mind needs a stronger body protecting it to work. So, I will get stronger and both keep my promise and protect everyone. This made Sarutobi hear and smile. The two boys in front of him were extremely feisty. If it materialized, Konoha would have a very promising future. He was aware of it. So, what have you planned for the future events? Shikamaru went on. Now that you mention it, Shikamaru, I actually haven't planned for anything yet. I was actually thinking of planning for it along the way, Naruto said, grinning foxy and massaging the back of his head. Shikamaru sighed and said, you really are hopeless Naruto. Anyway, even though it is a drag, let us first concentrate on the Uchiha massacre first. Lord Third, what do you think about it? The third Hokage replied, I think that all those who are not even remotely involved in this should be saved. And Itachi must not be branded as a traitor. Yeah, I think so too. And Sasuke should not be lied to this time. Add saving Shisui did too, Naruto added as well. I agree with half of what you said and disagree with the other half. I checked over 500 scenarios and most didn't end in our favor. So, will you listen to what I came up with which I think is the most favorable? Shikamaru said after he had been in his thinking pose for a while. Very well, Shikamaru, and say what you have in mind, the third Hokage retorted. Naruto gave a nod of approval. Well, the first event was the loss of Shisui Uchiha's Mangekyo Eye, Shikamaru began. He may or may not have woken it up without killing someone close. It makes no difference. The important thing is that we must save those eyes in him. We must keep Danzo away from him in order to accomplish that. Danzo has caused more trouble for the Leaf than we can handle. If my understanding is correct, the man did nothing for the Leaf because Naruto's father was the Hokage until his passing. When Shikamaru mentioned that he was aware of Naruto's father, the third Hokage was taken aback. Yes, Lord Third, I am aware of who his parents are, Shikamaru said. He himself told us. For a few of us, anyway. Returning to the subject at hand, Danzo must simply perish. And why is that so, Shikamaru? The third Hokage asked, feeling so shaken that even Naruto was taken aback. Let me put this straight to your face, Lord Hokage, Shikamaru replied. After that, you determine if I'm correct or not. Shisui's left eye was taken by him. He and his root members did nothing to save the Leaf during the Sand invasion in the hopes that he would be selected as Hokage in the event that the invasion was successful or you perished. Yes, in order to further the cause, he even leaked some crucial and confidential documents. He did the same when Pain invaded. Pain, however, succeeded in becoming the temporary Hokage despite his own failure. To make Mifune the supreme commander of the allied shinobi forces and the host of the Five-Cage Summit, he even used Shisui's eye power to cast a genjutsu on him. This allowed him to eventually use the power for complete dominance. Above all, he wanted to use Naruto as a weapon. He was also the reason why the masked man knew where Naruto was born, which led to the attack on Konoha and the death of the fourth Hokage, Naruto's mother, and your wife. To put it briefly, he removed Naruto's family. Despite his deep devotion to the village, he has become corrupted by his desire for power. The third Hokage noticed that Shikamaru, who was normally too indolent to express much emotion, was expressing anger toward Danzo. To say that he was angry would be an understatement, as he was leaking a ridiculous amount of killer intent into the room, which would have led to the death of any civilians present by then. Even Jonins would have been tempted to commit suicide as a result of the killer intent, but the two boys had endured much worse, so they were highly resistant to it. Sensing the intent of the massive killer, Naruto questioned, "Gigi, what happened? What's causing your anger? Are you upset with Danzo for damaging the leaf?" "Wow, Lord Third, you truly have the brightest will of fire," Shikamaru continued. "It's no wonder you adore this village." However, they were surprised by the third Hokage's straightforward but impactful response. "Screw the leaf, Naruto is family. Bawako was, too. Danzo is going to die." No one tampered with the Hokage's grandson figure, and Naruto shed a single tear. Both Naruto and Shikamaru were moved by the Hokage's words and understood what he meant. "I apologize," Shikamaru said, interrupting the moment. "Let's resume our work now. Consequently, it is decided that Danzo will pass away." "However, how? Naruto and I are unable to defeat the man in our current state. Furthermore, I don't think Naruto can use all of Kurama's power. We're both out, then. To the best of my knowledge, Danzo can currently only be killed by 4 individuals. Lord Third, you are undoubtedly the first. Kakashi Hatake comes in second, and Maeda Gai, utilizing the inner gates, comes in third. Of course, Itachi Uchiha comes last. Therefore, I propose that the last 3 be sent together to kill him. They can take him out during the massacre, Lord Third, since you are unable to leave the office. I anticipate that Root will undoubtedly be present to ensure that the Uchihas are removed. Then, Danzo can be removed." The third Hokage grinned and remarked, "Very well, Shikamaru, impressed by the cleverness and strategy of the lazy genius boy. When the time comes, I'll make sure to do that. Proceed." "That's done now," Shikamaru said, nodding. "Only those who will be directly involved in the massacre should be put to death. To avoid getting caught in the crossfire, the others should be evacuated to a secure location. Itachi will have the ability to predict who will participate. That ought to take care of it. Additionally, Itachi needs to be informed that Danzo will attempt to persuade him to massacre his entire clan in exchange for Shisui's safety at all costs. Itachi should also be reassured that his brother will be safe so that only those involved can be killed. That should cover it, do you not think?" "You really are a genius, Shikamaru," the third Hokage remarked with a smile. "You will undoubtedly outperform your elderly father. I'll see to it that both occur. Naruto, what are your thoughts?" "I knew that I could trust you with my life, Shikamaru," Naruto said with a foxy smile. "You really are brilliant. I agree to the plan." "What will you do about Obito? He was also present. And Itachi, what will happen to him?" Kurama interrupted Naruto as he was grinning at the compliment. "You're right. I'll let them know that," Naruto replied. "Ah, Gigi, Shikamaru, what about Obito?" he exclaimed. Unable to comprehend him, the third Hokage questioned, "What do you mean, Naruto?" "Obito also played a role in pressuring Itachi to massacre the entire clan," Naruto retorted. "At the time, he went by Madara. What will happen to Itachi and Shisui after this incident is over?" "Man, what a drag," Shikamaru sighed. "You're correct. That fact slipped my mind. Therefore, even if Itachi hears the guy out, we must ensure that he does not listen to him. Additionally, I believe Itachi needs to rejoin Akatsuki. For that, he ought to be classified as an S-rank missing nin. Additionally, Shisui ought to be announced as the new clan leader. That ought to take care of it. And let Sasuke get consumed by hatred again," exploded Naruto. "Why don't we?" In response, Shikamaru said, "He won't be overcome by hatred this time." "Why?" "Because he will need to protect his mother and the other members of the clan. Additionally, Itachi's joining Akatsuki is essential to us because it allows us to monitor them. However, he doesn't have to remain there indefinitely this time. He will come back when the time is right. However, I don't think he can last very long. Remember, Naruto, that he has some sort of life-threatening illness that will be detrimental to us. He should therefore stay in Akatsuki until the Chunin exams in order to maximize it. I apologize for that, Shikamaru, Naruto said, nodding. I didn't give it much thought. Typical of you, Shikamaru said with a smile. However, that's who you are. Now that you've finished talking about the specifics, I'll set the things to play, shall I? Said the third Hokage, who was observing all of this from the sidelines. Shikamaru and Naruto both nodded in agreement, and the third Hokage then inquired, is there anything else we should talk about? Nothing at this time, Shikamaru replied. We'll have a lot to talk about after the massacre is over. Simply provide Itachi, Shisui, Guy, and Kakashi with the pertinent information. That will suffice. I will, Shikamaru, declared the third Hokage. Naruto, anything from you? Plan a training regimen for your lazy friend there and tell him about those root agents who have been tailing you for some time now, Kurama told Naruto before he could respond. All right, I will, Naruto answered. Gigi, 3 things, he said to the third Hokage. First and foremost, I've been being followed by root agents for a few weeks. That forced me to postpone my training. Shikamaru will also be tailed now that he is attending the meeting. All negative emotions, as well as some neutral and positive ones, are audible to me. How do we get the Kyuubi vessel into the root? Was the typical response I heard. How can we kill him if he goes on a rampage if we are unable to? What is the purpose of all those meetings with the elderly man? All of those thoughts are negative. Negative emotions can be suppressed by root, in my opinion. They can only stifle positive ones, in my opinion. Shikamaru noticed the room's temperature drop significantly, but Naruto didn't, so he poked fun at the blonde, asking, what was that for Shikamaru? Lord Third is angry, was Shikamaru's response. At that moment, he realized that the old Hokage's killer intent had significantly reduced the room's temperature, and both Naruto and Shikamaru believed that his killer intent could rival Madara's. The third Hokage yelled angrily, Danzo has overreached himself. He should and will die. I won't rush it, so don't worry. I'll hold off until the incident occurs. He will then pass away. After playing with my family, does he think he can get away with it? He will understand why I was selected as the third Hokage by Tobirama-sensei. I'll secure Anbu protection for you too. Who specifically do you want? Gigi, Naruto replied. I want Yamato Taicho, also known as Tenzo, and Yugao Izuki to be Shikamaru's Anbu guards. I also want Itachi Uchiha and Shisui. In this manner, both can be shielded from Tobi and Danzo. Additionally, make sure they don't watch us while we're training. Simply allow them to erect a perimeter around the property, which even they are not allowed to enter. Our secret must not be revealed too quickly. The third Hokage agreed right away and stated, I'll make sure they don't interfere with your training, and they'll be with you soon after you depart. Furthermore, what else would you like to talk about? It's about Shikamaru's training, Naruto replied. Gigi, do you have any more chakra papers? With a smile on his face, the third Hokage produced a chakra paper from his desk and gave it to Shikamaru, saying, I assume you understand how to use it. With a nod, Shikamaru directed some of his chakra toward the paper, which instantly burned and turned to dust. You seem to have equally strong affinities for fire and earth, the third Hokage remarked. It will be useful for the jutsus of your clan. When it comes to your elemental affinity mastery exercises, Naruto will undoubtedly assist you. Naruto, won't you? Sure, and we can also work on his taijutsu and stamina, Naruto smiled in response. Man, what a drag, but it can't be helped, Shikamaru remarked languidly. What is the third thing, Naruto? The Hokage then inquired. I doubt anyone will believe us as soon as you have when we reveal the truth, Naruto retorted. Therefore, are there any memory return seals or transfer seals? Like, we can bring back the memories of the previous timeline by using chakra? There might be something like that, the third Hokage replied. I'll check on it and let you know. Then Naruto said, all right, Gigi, we're going. His training must begin as soon as possible. The blonde boy's enthusiasm made the third Hokage laugh, and as he stood up and began to move toward the door, he said, Naruto, why do you work so hard for the sake of everyone else? Naruto paused, grinned, and said, Gigi, both my parents said the same thing to me when I first met them. I heard Kurama say the same thing. They claim to have faith in me. How can I not put in a lot of effort now? After the third Hokage and Shikamaru both grinned, Shikamaru said, Naruto, you truly are something else. However, why do you continue to wear the orange jumpsuit after arriving from the future? At the very least, could you wear the one you wore in the war? With the same tiny but sincere smile, Naruto replied, Shikamaru, my mother asked me a question. What would we get if we mixed the red hot-blooded habanero with Konoha's yellow flash? She asked me. It was a very easy answer. We would receive the orange Hokage of Konoha, is the response. With a smile, Shikamaru stood up and said, well then Orange Hokage, we better start training. The three Hokages sat grinning at the friendship between the two and then undid the privacy seals and called for his ANBUs. He had a lot of work to do, starting with getting the two boys' Anbu bodyguards. Konoha's streets. Naruto and Shikamaru were talking about Shikamaru's training as they made their way to the training area behind the Hokage monument. First, we will increase your stamina and chakra capacity so that you can use at least 10 shadow clones for an extended period of time, Naruto stated. After that, we can train you using the same technique that I employ. I assume you will have finished both of the elemental manipulation training exercises by the time you graduate. When Shikamaru noticed that Naruto had abruptly stopped talking and tensed up, he questioned, what is it, Naruto? Root, was Naruto's response. Their purpose is to seize us. Are you up for a little brawl? In response, Shikamaru said, what a drag. We can, I guess. I gain in chakra capacity what I lack in chakra control. Let's engage in combat on some practice grounds. You can knock out the agents after I use my shadow possession to trap them. The secret is surprise. After he was done, they both began to jog in the direction of Training Ground 7. Naruto then remarked, I believe they are waiting for us to reach a remote location. Thus, we have a little time together. Shikamaru gave a nod and began formulating plans while moving. They were jogging toward the grounds when they came to a pier. Naruto turned to face the boy, who was attempting to exhale a fireball from his mouth and had a duck. Shaped, raven. Haired appearance. Naruto was about to run in the direction of the boy when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Shikamaru remarked, Sasuke doesn't know us very well right now, Naruto. Therefore, approaching him and acting like close friends won't benefit us. All right, let's become friends, Naruto said with a foxy smile. With a sigh and a smile, Shikamaru said, is there nothing we can do about you? So, dear Orange Hokage, take the lead. You won't reveal the Orange Hokage part, will you? Pouted Naruto. Not till you become the Hokage, Shikamaru replied with a laugh. Shikamaru said, looks like you are having trouble with that jutsu, as they approached Sasuke, who was practicing the fireball jutsu on the pier, which was not going well, am I correct? As if you two could help me, sneered Sasuke in response to the remark. At this, Shikamaru flashed a cheeky grin and said, Naruto, would you mind? After saying, gladly, Shikamaru, Naruto made the hand gestures and yelled, fire release, fireball jutsu. He then exhaled a fireball that was almost as big and as hot as the grand fireball, and Sasuke just stood there staring at it in wonder while Shikamaru laughed heartily. How did you do that? Sasuke asked Naruto after he had recovered from the awe. I couldn't do it either. In response, Naruto said, blow out a ball of fire by heating the chakra in your lungs. Use more chakra if it doesn't come out as a big one. That ought to suffice. Following the instructions, Sasuke began to do as he was told, and after a few attempts, he was able to exhale a sizable fireball. Sasuke was ecstatic and completely overjoyed, practically jumping up and down with joy, and he thanked them while working hard to contain his happiness. However, Shikamaru and Naruto could see that he was happy and surprised that this was the emo king thanking them. Naruto stiffened up and began jogging once more, and Shikamaru noticed and followed him. Sasuke stood there for a while before he regained consciousness and began to follow them, albeit covertly, to see if they were going to train and, if so, to see if they would let him join. Training Area 7. Within 15 minutes, both boys arrived at the training grounds, where 10 rude ANBUs surrounded them as soon as they reached the center. Sasuke arrived at that moment and decided to hide for the time being after spotting the ANBUs, but Naruto sensed him and gestured to Shikamaru, who understood. Fortunately, none of the rude ANBUs did. The tallest of the rude ANBUs, who was presumably their captain, then stepped forward and declared, Lord Danzo has asked for your audience, Naruto Uzumaki and Shikamaru Nara. Come with us in peace, please. We don't want to cause you two any harm. After exchanging cheeky smiles, Shikamaru and Naruto said, if my memory serves me correctly, root isn't supposed to exist. They ought to have been dissolved long ago. Are you ready, Naruto? Go ahead, Shikamaru, Naruto said with a foxy smile. I don't think you'll come on your own accord, the root ANBU's captain stated. It would appear that violence is required. Capture them. Shikamaru made a hand gesture and yelled, Shadow Possession Jutsu, at which point the shadow from his feet grew larger and ensnared all of the root ANBU's shadows. He then declared, Shadow Possession Success, which rendered all of the root Anbu immobile. Then, using his favorite hand gesture, Naruto said, Shadow Clone Jutsu, and 10 Narutos appeared. The two boys then tied the root A and Bus together after the 10 shadow clones approached and knocked them out. Then Naruto remarked, that was really fast. I suppose they greatly underestimated us, Dabbeo. Yes, Shikamaru said. They did. They are currently in serious trouble. After giving Sasuke a nod, Naruto turned to face him and yelled, You can come out now, Sasuke. I am aware of your presence. Knowing he had been discovered, Sasuke emerged from his hiding place and questioned, Who are they? Why did they target the two of you? How did you easily defeat them? And how were you aware of my hiding place? In response, Shikamaru said, A question at a time. They are ninjas from Root. A branch of Anbu that is, if you may say so, banned. You don't need to know why they were pursuing us. They paid the price because they misjudged us, and we prevailed. As for finding you, I sensed you as soon as you arrived, Naruto interrupted. As he finished, the Anbu wearing the weasel mask stepped forward and inquired, What happened here? 4 ANBUs arrived at the training ground, surprised to see the root ANBUs tied up and the 3 boys standing close to them. Were any of you injured? Don't worry, Itachi-san. None of us are hurt, Naruto replied. Itachi was completely caught off guard. The boy realized who he was, so he took off his mask. Sasuke was also taken aback and questioned, What are you doing here, brother Itachi? The Hokage sent us here, Itachi replied. How did you know it was me, Naruto-kun? I know who each of you are, Naruto replied. Tenzo-san, Shisui-san, and Yugao-san. Gigi informed us both of the sender. Shikamaru nodded, realizing that Naruto was making a very plausible lie, and to their surprise, the ANBUs took them seriously. Sasuke, go home for the time being, Itachi said, turning to face him. Tomorrow, you might run into your new pals again. Naruto exclaimed, Sure, Sasuke, you can join us, just as Sasuke was about to respond that they weren't yet his friends. How about we get together here on Saturdays and Sundays? Surprised that the boys thought of him as a friend, Sasuke nodded joyfully and hurried off in the direction of his clan compound. The others took off their masks as soon as Sasuke departed, and Itachi declared, I will summon reinforcements to remove these root ANBUs. Could you tell us how you overcame these opponents? They underestimated us, Naruto retorted. I knocked them out after Shikamaru immobilized them with his clan's jutsu. After impressing the ANBUs, Itachi declared, we had better go. And in order to better protect you, we need a thorough schedule of your daily activities. Well, we will come up with one, Shikamaru replied. Right now, we don't have a set one. Let's make a schedule, Naruto. Training Area 7. What kind of schedule? Inquired Naruto. Well, Mr. Orange Hokage, we need to get stronger, Shikamaru replied. I must strengthen myself, of course. Stop that Orange Hokage thing, Shikamaru, sulked Naruto. Not until you become the Hokage, Shikamaru smirked. It was good to see that the boy who was shunned by most of the villagers had someone he could call a friend. The ANBUs grinned at the boy's argument. Suddenly, 10 more ANBUs showed up. Already present, the 4 donned their masks. Apparently, their purpose was to remove the root ANBUs. The 4 proceeded to inform the recently arrived group of the situation. Let us not discuss what we will be doing. We can do it once we get to that training ground of yours. Let us now discuss at what time we will meet, Shikamaru said to Naruto in a low voice, taking advantage of the situation. As Shikamaru did the same, Naruto nodded and began to consider the schedule and how it ought to be. Following the removal of the root ANBUs, the 4 ANBUs returned. They took off their masks once more. Have you decided your schedule yet? Itachi then inquired. Yes, we have. We will leave our house at 6 a.m. and go for a jog around the village. Then, we will meet up behind the Hokage monument. By evening, around 4 p.m., we will return, Shikamaru responded on their behalf. I will probably train for a couple of hours more, Naruto said, nodding. The words, No Naruto, you would better go home too, were spoken by Shikamaru in protest. Why? It's not like anyone will be waiting for me, Naruto retorted. Everyone there experienced a twinge of sadness. Shikamaru replied, If you want to, you can come with me to watch the clouds. Choji will be there too. Itachi continued, and maybe, Sasuke would also like to join you too. If you want to, I will ask him. With a smile on his face, Naruto said, Really? Thanks Shikamaru. Thanks Itachi.ni.san. The boy's joy made everyone smile. Naruto's use of the term, Brother, surprised Itachi, but he didn't feel guilty about it, so he ignored it. Itachi continued, very well then. We will be within 50 feet of you two all the time until our job ends. And, during your training behind the Hokage monument, we will set up a barrier and a perimeter around the grounds so that no one can attack you. And don't worry, we won't spy on you. We don't know why, but it seems like Lord Hokage trusts you two a lot. So, we trust you too. That is all. Now, we will get to our posts. As the ANBUs disappeared and Naruto realized they had reached their positions, both boys nodded. After making a commitment to meet up at the main gates at 6 AM the following day, the two boys parted ways. The main gates of Konoha on the following day. Naruto had already reached the main gates and was now impatiently awaiting Shikamaru's arrival. Shikamaru showed up with a huge yawn and a very lethargic expression after waiting for a few minutes, which seemed like hours to Naruto. Naruto's rage at the slothful genius had no boundaries. The fact that Kurama was rolling on the ground from laughing inside his mindscape only made it worse. Where the hell have you been, Shikamaru? I have been waiting for WHO knows how long. You are late, he yelled at the slacky boy. Shikamaru put both index fingers to his ears and sighed. He continued, have you seen the time, Naruto? It's still 2 minutes to 6. You say I am late. In fact, you are early. Besides, you can pick up the habit and annoy your sensei maybe. Naruto was simultaneously irritated and joyful. As Shikamaru pointed out, he was ultimately early and the lazy boy wasn't late, which irritated him. Even though he was aware of the reasons behind his sensei's tardiness, he was pleased that he had at last managed to irritate him. He reasoned that perhaps he would also find it annoying to have the pitiful explanation added as retaliation. After he had calmed down, Naruto said, okay, Shikamaru, we will jog through the training grounds 3, 4, 5, 6 and 9 and from there go towards the grounds behind the Hokage monument. That should be enough for now. It will probably take us 1 to 1.5 hours with our present stamina and strength. Replied Shikamaru, what a drag. Okay, we will. Hopefully, by the time we graduate, we will be a lot stronger than before. After that, they both started jogging. They went by the deserted training grounds 3, 4, 5, and 6 along the route, as well as the rather noisy training ground 9. Gai Sensei, who was performing his daily exercises, was the source of the noise. He ran at the two boys as soon as he saw them, shouted something about their youthful passions and sobbed joyful waterfalls. He then gave them advice on physical activities before releasing them. They arrived at the grounds behind the Hokage monument an hour and 15 minutes later. Naruto noticed that the 4 ANBUs had dispersed, probably to create a barrier and a perimeter to keep the root ninjas out. Knowing that they wouldn't be prying into their training and that they would be safe from Danzo and Root as long as the ANBUs were nearby, Naruto exhaled with relief. Behind the Hokage monument is a training ground. Naruto and Shikamaru headed in the direction of the location where the Hokage had used his jutsus to create a cliff and a waterfall. Shikamaru was taken aback upon witnessing this. This made Naruto chuckle. However, even he had to concede that Jiji's jutsu completely eclipsed the one performed by Captain Yamato in the earlier timeline. Recovering from his sense of awe, Shikamaru. Okay, we both need to get strong to change the future. But getting strong without a plan is useless. So, we need to make sure we grow in all areas rather than one or two. Getting more jutsus is as important as mastering the ones you have. So, first, let us begin with telling each other what our present situation is with our abilities. Naruto, you begin. Tell me your chakra capacity, abilities, control and the jutsus you know. Replied, okay Shikamaru. My chakra capacity is definitely above Kage level. It is 5 times as much as Jiji's. Add Kurama's chakra too and it becomes like 150 or so times. I have like mid. Shunin level chakra control. It's really hard to better it thanks to my already huge capacity and Kurama's chakra. I will never be affected by genjutsu thanks to Kurama and Old Man Sage's chakra. My taijutsu is my own style and I am still starting to develop it. Even Super Fuzzy Brows Sensei also said that it is really effective. I can't cast genjutsu unless it uses huge amount of chakra. As for my ninjutsu, it's my strong point. I can use wind release, water release, earth release, lightning release and fire release, in order of affinities. I can also use yin release, yang release and yin yang release. Then, I can also use magnet release, coral release, lava release, steam release, acid release, scale release and ink release. Shikamaru's mouth fell to the floor. Following his recuperation, he said, I have never heard anyone with so many releases. Most of it, I haven't even heard of. You really are something else Naruto. Naruto smiled as he rubbed the back of his head and said, Well, I am the pseudo-Jinchuriki of every tailed beast. So, I get their powers as well. And, there is Old Man Sage's chakra as well. Anyway, as for the jutsus I know the Academy 2 and Shadow clones. Then, I know Wind Release, Gale Palm and Wind Release, great breakthrough for Wind Release and was starting to work on Wind Release, drilling Air Bullet. I know Water Release, Wild Water Wave, Water Release, Gunshot and Water Release, Water Prison for Water Release and was about to learn Water Release, Water Formation Wall. I know Earth Release, Double Suicide Decapitation Jutsu and Earth Release, Hiding Like a Mole Jutsu for Earth Release and was about to work on Earth Release, Multiple Earth Style Wall Jutsu. Then, I know, Lightning Release, Electromagnetic Murder and Lightning Release, Lightning Beast Tracking Fang for Lightning Release and was to work on Lightning Release, Conductive Shock Jutsu. I know Fire Release, Fireball Jutsu and Fire Release, Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu for Fire Release and was about to begin on Fire Release, Flame Bullet Jutsu. I was also about to work on Body Flicker Jutsu. Then, I can use Rasengan and many of its variants. I can't use either Rasen Shuriken or its variants yet. And I haven't tried Sage Mode yet. I can use Lava Release, Lava Bullet, Steam Release, Unrivaled Strength, Steam Release, Erupting Propulsion Fist as other release moves. And I can utilize version 1 form of Jinchuriki transformation and have already mastered one-tailed state. And I will begin to master the 2 and 3-tailed state of my version 1 form. Also, my Fuinjutsu is at intermediate level. I can make exploding notes, paralysis notes, flashbang notes and storage scrolls. I need a Fuinjutsu master to get to a higher level. That sums it up. Shikamaru was impressed by the blonde's jutsu expertise and development. He continued, well, that is a lot. As for me, my genjutsu is non-existent even though I can both cast and release them. My chakra capacity is at low Jonin level and chakra control in my present state is non-existent. My taijutsu is only up to the mark. My jutsu are mostly clan-based, which include Earth Release, Practice Brick Jutsu, Shadow Clutch Jutsu, Shadow Gathering Jutsu, Shadow Imitation Shuriken Jutsu, Shadow Imitation Jutsu, Shadow Sewing Jutsu and Shadow Neck Binding Jutsu. That is all. He went on, we both have a lot to work on. Even though you have grown a lot stronger, it isn't enough. So, first, learn the moves you said you were working on. Also, master every chakra control exercises so that your chakra control can keep up with your chakra capacity. Then, learn to do the Academy Jutsus and Body Flicker and also the Shadow Clones without hand seals. Then, master the Rasengan and learn to do it single-handed. That should keep you occupied for some time. And also work on physical aspects of your body, Shuriken and Kunai throwing and Taijutsu. Naruto said, okay, what about you? With a nod. Replied Shikamaru, I have to start from scratch. Lucky for me, at my chakra capacity, I can do about 5 shadow clones. I will have them work on the chakra control and elemental affinity mastery for the next 6 months and I will work on my physical body. That should do it for now. After giving each other a nod and a fist bump, the two boys began training. They would have a long 6 months until the day of the massacre. After 6 months, both boys had been regularly training for the 6 months since Shikamaru's arrival. Thanks to invitations from Shikamaru and Choji, Naruto had visited the Nara and Akamichi clan compounds numerous times. Meanwhile, he had developed a close friendship with Choji. Additionally, Sasuke had grown to like the 3 boys, especially Naruto, to the point where he now referred to them as his best friends. Naruto had turned into a friendly rival to Sasuke. To the surprise of the 2-time travelers, he declared that in front of the group, and they wondered if this was the same emotion from their earlier timeline. On the weekends, the 2-time travelers would practice the fundamental chakra control techniques they had learned in the academy with the other 2 boys. When asked how they had mastered the exercises, the blonde and the lazy genius said that they had been doing it for a while. Fortunately, the story had been purchased by both boys. Thus, their covert training remained a secret. Shikamaru had advanced from low Jonin to mid Jonin in his chakra capacity. Instead of the original 5 shadow clones, he was now using 10. He was already proficient in the exercises of leaf sticking, tree walking, water walking, and their variations. He was now trying to make those take longer. Currently, each of his clones could remain on the water for 30 minutes and adhere to the tree for an hour. His goal was to increase those to 3 and 5 hours, respectively. Additionally, he was improving well in the elemental manipulation exercises. He was working on the second stage of the exercises after mastering the first. Naruto had advanced from mid Chunin to high Chunin in terms of chakra control. He also had more chakra capacity. He was able to perform the academy jutsus without hand seals and had mastered every jutsu he had been practicing. His current task was to create shadow clones without the use of hand seals. Now that he had successfully completed the Rasengan with one hand, he was attempting to perform it with his left hand without using the Sage mode. The promise that the old man Sage had inquired about Shikamaru's desire to keep was revealed to Naruto. In fact, he found the conversation to be unforgettable. Retrospection. Shikamaru and Naruto were both taking a break from training at around 2 in the afternoon. They were now observing clouds, and they were completely worn out. Shikamaru had returned back from the future 2 months prior. Both of them were quietly observing the clouds. Naruto suddenly recalled the conversation with Gigi. Shikamaru had mentioned a promise, he recalled, and the memory had been bothering him ever since that day. Because Shikamaru had not gone into detail, it was such a suspenseful promise that he was determined to learn more. He chose to ask the slack-jawed boy. Naruto stood up and sat down with his legs crossed. He inquired, Shikamaru, that day, you said something about the old man Sage asking you whether you would like to keep your promise. What was that promise? At this, Shikamaru sighed and raised an eyebrow. Leave it, Naruto. It's just a drag, he continued. Come on, Shikamaru. Tell me the truth, was Naruto's message, and he continued without being silenced. What a drag. Why do you need to know the truth? Shikamaru sighed once more. At this point, Naruto's mood soured. His voice was somewhat sorrowful. I have been lied to, half of my life. I have been hated for the truth I had been denied. I was left without a family for a truth that was hidden. That, Shikamaru, is why I wish to know the truth. Shikamaru observed that the blonde's voice seemed to conceal a hint of sadness beneath the anger. Knowing that there was nothing else he could do but tell him, he sighed to himself. He continued, that day on the battlefield, when you saved my life by giving Kurama's chakra, I figured out something. You were just like the first Hokage. You are stupid and jolly goer. But unlike him, you don't have an intelligent younger brother to guide or advise you. In your childhood, you were lonely. I made a mistake by not being a friend of you. I regret that. I didn't want you to be lonely anymore. So, I promised myself and my dad that when you become the Hokage, I would be with you as your chief advisor and guide you as a brother, just like the second Hokage was to the first, because no one is better advisor to you than me. A couple of tears fell from Naruto's eye and onto the floor as he sat there in shock. He continued, thank you, Shikamaru. You don't know how important those words are for me. It's good to know that there is a friend to rely on, no a brother to rely on. Thank you again. What a drag. You don't need to thank me, Naruto. I just want to correct my mistakes, Shikamaru sighed. If so, we will both correct our mistakes together, Dabayo, Naruto said, glancing at him and extending his right fist for a fist bump. Okay then, Orange Hokage, let's do it together, Shikamaru said, grinning and giving him a fist bump. He was overjoyed to have made such a friend. He was aware that he wouldn't be alone this time. He felt so much more confident just thinking about it. But he had other things to focus on for the time being. The Uchiha massacre was just a week away. He hoped everything would go according to plan. The massacre 1 week ahead, Itachi was annoyed. His clan's leaders and advisors were preparing a coup against the Hidden Leaf village not long ago. They believed that the village had betrayed their trust and that they should learn their lesson. They also believed that Uchiha should be in charge of the village since it was their rightful inheritance. Even Shisui had found this bothersome. Despite their belief that these were utterly foolish concepts, they were powerless to stop them. What disturbed them most, though, was a man wearing a spiral face mask. It was surprising to learn that the third Hokage had already warned them to stay away from the man. They had thus been able to avoid the man, who was undoubtedly actively involved in the coup. However, things had recently become violent. Neither of the two pacifists showed up for the clan meeting to which they were invited. Consequently, the two prodigies beat up the stuck-up Uchihas who confronted them. But because they didn't want the incident to happen again, they did go to another meeting. However, they quickly came to regret the choice. Because they had to put up with the haughty Uchiha's conceit. Fugaku Uchiha, Itachi's father and the head of the clan, was the sole exception. However, the fact that they had been given a mission was the real reason they had to regret their choice. In particular, an attempt to kill the third Hokage. Only Fugaku Uchiha, the leader of the clan, appeared dejected at this, and they realized right away that he had not been able to persuade the others that it was a bad idea. They were therefore unable to comment on it either. As Itachi waited to see the third Hokage with Shisui, this was the thing that was disturbing him. The Hokage appeared more dejected than ever when they were welcomed into his office. The Hokage appeared to be aware of what they were going to tell him. I know why you two are here. Isn't it about the assassination mission? The third Hokage said, seemingly at the same moment. This caught Shisui and Itachi off guard. The first to emerge from the surprise was Itachi, who questioned, "How do you know Lord Hokage?" The Hokage responded, "I knew all along that I would be targeted eventually. So, what do you two want to say about it?" "It is utterly stupid. They won't succeed," was their simultaneous response. "Will you two accept a secret S-rank mission?" the Hokage asked after simply nodding. The fact that the Hokage was assigning them an S-rank mission at this particular moment shocked them. But for them, duty and village loyalty came first. "Of course, Lord Third. What are the mission details?" they asked. "To assassinate everyone involved in the massacre," the Hokage said, nodding. This shocked both of the Uchihas. "I know this is sudden, but a problem should be solved before it goes out of hand. The innocent Uchihas will be sent to somewhere safe and only those who are involved in the coup shall be killed. Will you accept?" the Hokage went on before they could interrupt. They both gave it some thought. They could stop needless deaths and bloodshed if they could simply kill the perpetrators. The majority of the Uchihas would also be secure. The benefits exceeded the drawbacks. "We accept, Lord Hokage," they declared. "Very well, then. Shisui will most likely become the new clan head, because Itachi's mission will not end there," the Hokage said with a smile. They were both taken aback by this. "What do you mean, Lord Hokage?" they inquired. The Hokage responded, "Shisui's involvement in this affair will be kept a secret, whereas Itachi's will not be. He will instead be branded as an S-rank missing ninja. His mission, from there, will be to join the organization known as Akatsuki. Once you do so, you will send important information of their activities to Jiraiya. He will be informed about the mission. He will then send the information to me. Of course, these are only if you accept, Itachi." After giving it some thought, Itachi questioned, "What is so special about this organization, Lord Hokage?" The master replied, "It is an organization, consisting only of S-rank missing ninjas. According to Jiraiya's reports, they are after all the tailed beasts." This caused Shisui's and Itachi's eyes to widen. They both reached the same conclusion. Plotting to destroy elemental nations, this was a dangerous organization. They did, however, have one crucial thought, and Itachi said, "They will come for Naruto-kun." With a solemn nod, the third Hokage nodded his head. "I accept, Lord Hokage. We won't disappoint you. How long will the mission for my part be?" Itachi said after considering all the information. "As long as it takes to delay them or until I tell you to abandon the mission," the Hokage retorted. "We accept, Lord Hokage," the two Uchihas said, nodding. The Hokage nodded and continued, "Very well, your mission will begin in a week. Every innocent Uchiha will be transported to a safe location. There is a chance that Danzo will try to manipulate you to kill the whole clan. But, don't pay heed to him. Because, he plans to extract Sharingan eyes of the dead Uchihas. So, dispose of the bodies as soon as you kill them while I will make a small squad to kill Danzo. Itachi, as soon as you finish your first part of the mission, leave for the second part immediately. If you meet your brother, tell him that you will explain everything to him when you get the chance. Now, you two may leave." After nodding, the two Uchihas departed, making plans for the assassination in their minds. The massacre's night, Itachi and Shisui had no trouble assassinating the clan elders and those involved in the coup plan, and they had disposed of their bodies with care. Fugaku Uchiha, the current head of the clan, was the only one who remained to be killed. Shisui had already been sent away by Itachi in order to conceal his involvement and ensure that the innocent clan members were safe. Most likely, his father was at their home. He went there first, then. Itachi discovered his father inside their house, as he had anticipated. Despite sensing him, his father did not oppose him. Rather, he sat motionless where he was. Itachi proceeded to murder his father despite his reluctance. Recognizing his predicament, his dad said, "Don't hesitate, Itachi. You are fulfilling your duty towards the village. That is a great honor indeed. I just hope that the Uchiha's name shall regain its pride as an important and loyal clan of Konoha after my death. Hopefully, Shisui will make sure that it happens. Remember, son, no matter which path you take, I am proud of you." Itachi, on the other hand, was speechless. As tears streamed down his face, he ran his sword through his father's heart and said, "I am sorry for doing this, father." He believed that the burning pain that pierced his eyes was a sign that his Mangekyo had been activated. Soon after he disposed of his father's body, he fled the clan compound. He couldn't bring himself to go see his brother, so he decided against it. In the interim, Danzo had felt furious. Hiruzen Sarutobi had succeeded in sending all of the innocent Uchihas to safety, and neither Itachi nor Shisui had paid attention to him. he would at least be able to see Sharingan eyes. He had to deal with regular Sharingans because Shisui had gotten away from him. With that thought, he headed for the Uchiha clan compound. But he was furious when he witnessed what the two Uchihas had done to the assassins' bodies. His chance of obtaining the Sharingans for himself was gone. However, a group of 4 shinobi, Maeda Gai, Kakashi Hatake, Asuma Sarutobi, and Tenzo, also known as Yamato, appears out of nowhere and encircles him, giving the impression that his troubles are just getting started. "Shimura Danzo, you are to be executed for charges of treason. There is no means of escape for you," declared Kakashi as he moved forward. With no sign of intimidation, Danzo questioned, "What happened to Fu and Torun?" Replied Tenzo, "They are dead. Assassinated, because they could prove to be quite a risk. Soon, you will join them in the afterlife." When Danzo asked, "Do you kids seriously think that you could kill me?" he simply laughed. Asuma responded, "Don't underestimate us, because it could well be the end of you." Wind release. Vacuum wave, was said by Danzo as he abruptly performed some hand seals. After taking a deep breath, he began compressing and spinning it before releasing it as wind blades moving in various directions. Wood release. Wood dome, was Tenzo's hand gesture in response, and a wooden doom appeared to shield them from Danzo's jutsu. Then, after leaping from the dome and performing a few hand seals, Kakashi yelled, "Fire release, Grand Fireball Jutsu," and hurled a massive fireball in Danzo's direction. Danzo was aware that it would be problematic to use wind style jutsu against fire style jutsu so close to one another. He therefore took a small step back. Taking advantage of this, Guy and Asuma leapt from the dome and fought him using taijutsu. Wind release. Vacuum spheres, was said by Danzo after he noticed this and went through multiple hand seals. He inhaled deeply once more before releasing a series of tiny bursts of wind chakra in the direction of Guy and Asuma. By shouting, "Earth release, Earth-style wall," and forming a wall of earth with dog faces, Kakashi was able to stop Danzo's attack just in time. As Guy opened 5 of his 8 inner gates, Asuma used the cover to charge his trench knives with wind chakra. Danzo had no time to use any jutsu because Guy attacked first. He yelled, "Asakujaku," as he leapt into the air and began punching, causing the air to catch fire from the friction and force of his blows. Danzo was hurt when he was struck by the fireballs. Danzo pulled out a kunai and used wind-infused chakra to transform it into a makeshift sword as soon as he was somewhat away from the perilous attack. Asuma soon used his trench knives infused with wind chakra to attack Danzo. They continued exchanging blows for a while. Fighting against 4 Jonins was difficult, as even Danzo had to acknowledge. If they were prodigies, in particular, they were preventing him from using his wood release skills by removing the seal on his right arm. It was also difficult to engage in close combat with 2 taijutsu experts. He was too preoccupied with the fight to notice Tenzo hand sealing his wood release or Kakashi charging up with his lightning cutter. Unexpectedly, Danzo was bound to the spot by tendrils of wood that clung to him. However, he was instantly killed by a lightning fast chakra infused jab that passed through his heart before he could recover. Danzo was killed there that evening by 4 incredibly talented leaf shinobi. The 4 Jonins took his body and went off to tell the Hokage that their mission had been successful. The following day, Itachi Uchiha was formally designated as an S-rank missing ninja after word of the Uchiha clan's leader's murders went viral. Office of the Hokage. Next day, Hiruzen, the Sarutobi, was waiting. Waiting for others, especially children, was uncommon for someone like him. Although they were careless, the aforementioned boys played a key role in the scheme to kill Danzo. Despite being called nearly an hour ago, Naruto and Shikamaru had not yet shown up. The 3rd Hokage was extremely irritated by this. After an hour and a half of waiting, the 2 boys finally showed up as if nothing had happened. When he saw how relaxed they were, the 3rd Hokage became enraged and began to threaten the 2 travelers by revealing a little bit of his murderous intent. The 2 boys sat on the chairs in front of the Hokage's table and pretended nothing had happened, even after they had a sense of the killer's intent. When the Hokage realized his strategy of intimidating the boys had not worked, he sent the ANBUs out of the room and sealed it. He continued, "The coup has been foiled. Itachi has started on his long-term mission. Danzo is dead." Naruto and Shikamaru both sighed with relief and nodded. They had no doubts about the success of their plan. Rather, the 2 boys had become agitated due to the anticipation. "What next, Shikamaru?" Naruto, the 3rd warrior, inquired. "Nothing of importance happened from here on. The next major thing was the Chunin exams, which is about 3.5 years away. Anything from you, Naruto?" Shikamaru responded after giving it some thought. Well, there's Mizuki's betrayal and wave mission. I can handle both of them, Naruto said after giving it some thought. How is the memory seal search coming, Lord Third? Shikamaru asked, turning to face the Hokage. We will definitely find it in a month, the Hokage replied. What about Root? There are many capable shinobi there, Shikamaru then inquired. They will undergo rehabilitation and be reintegrated into the regular shinobi service after approximately 3 years, was the third Hokage's response. Then, Academy is the only thing left, Shikamaru said, nodding. Naruto sagged visibly at this point. The pranks of Naruto made the third Hokage laugh. Observing Naruto's disposition, Shikamaru remarked, Calm down, Naruto. You'll have friends with you this time. Naruto nodded as he turned to face Shikamaru. Thanks Shikamaru. That means a lot to me, he continued. After giving the Hokage a nod, Shikamaru turned to face him and asked, Is there anything else to discuss, Lord Third? In response, the third Hokage said, No, that's all. You can leave now. When the Hokage unlocked the seals, the two boys stood up, gave him a nod, and departed the office. Following the boys' departure, the shinobi god pulled an orange-colored book out of his desk drawer and began reading it while giggling twistedly. With Shikamaru and Naruto, the two boys had just left the office of the Hokage. At last, Danzo was dead, and he would never again be able to ruin anything. Sasuke wouldn't be adamant about killing Danzo, and Sai wouldn't lose his feelings this time. Suddenly, Sasuke was the only person on both boys' minds. Together, they exchanged glances, nodded, and set out to find Sasuke. They searched for him for more than an hour. Before realizing that they hadn't searched for him at the pier where they had first met, they had searched everywhere, even pulling Choji with them. When they eventually located him, he was sitting on the pier's edge, looking very sad, and a few tears were streaming from his eyes. When he saw the three boys approaching, he turned around and wiped the tears from his eyes. He wore a frown and did his best to control his emotions before saying, Go away. I don't want to talk to anyone. Naruto responded, No, Sasuke. Right now, you need someone to talk to and we are your friends. Talk to us, put it all out. How could you know anything about what I have experienced? You never had anyone from the start, said Sasuke angrily, keeping his frown. As soon as Sasuke said that, a wave of sadness swept through the blonde boy's heart. Shikamaru's hand clenched into a fist, and his face showed obvious anger. Choji winced in response to Sasuke's words. Naruto put his hand on Shikamaru's shoulder to stop him from hitting the Uchiha as he was about to do so. Naruto continued, You are right Sasuke, I didn't have anyone from the start but I know that as long as my parents were with me, they had showered so much love on me that it would fill my life twice over. It is also because I had no one that I can understand how important bonds are. So, trust me when I say that you need to let all of your emotions out. Come with me, let us talk somewhere else. He then escorted the other three boys in the direction of the village. Perched atop the head of the fourth is the Hokage monument. As the two time travelers sat there, taking in the scenery, the Uchiha and the Akamichi stood gaping in wonder at what they saw. From the location, one could see the entire village, from the Hokage monument to the horizon outside Konoha's gates. The first to break the silence was Choji, who said, Wow, amazing. Sasuke simply gave the exclamation a nod of approval. Shikamaru simply grinned at the amazement of the two boys. Even he had to concede that the view was breathtaking. In the old timeline, he would watch clouds from there or sleep on the Hokage's head. Additionally, he was aware that Naruto had been spending more time on the fourth's head following the Pain's attack and the meeting with his father that followed. This time, after their training, he and Naruto would typically come here to observe the clouds. It is, isn't it? I came here with Gigi the first time, and I have been a regular visitor with Shikamaru ever since, Naruto said, grinning at his position. Choji and Sasuke both arched an eyebrow when Naruto brought up the word, Gigi. They were aware that Naruto had no family, much less a grandfather. Naturally, Shikamaru was aware of this Gigi's identity. Gigi? The two naive boys asked simultaneously. Yeah, old man Hokage was the first person who was actually nice to me and we have a close bond, Naruto said with a foxy smile and a head rub. It caught the two boys off guard. It appeared that the Hokage, the god of shinobi, didn't mind at all when their friend called him an old man. However, one thing stood out above the rest. He claimed that the first person to be kind to him was the Hokage. They were unaware of the reason behind the villagers' severe glares at him. Then, why are we here? Asked Sasuke. We understand what you're thinking, but believe us, retaliation is never beneficial, Shikamaru replied. Sasuke's rage erupted when revenge isn't good. Itachi killed my father. He turned into a criminal. I looked up to him and he betrayed me. I will kill him for what he did to father. I hate him." This time, Naruto replied, "Hatred breeds only more hatred, Sasuke. You will be pulled into an endless cycle of hatred and darkness. If you go down the path of an avenger, you will lose everything you hold dear to in your life, including your mother." The mention of the fact caused Sasuke's heart to skip a beat. "Then what do you expect me to do? I hate him. How can I beat the hatred, huh? It's not as easy as you make it to be," he said, clenching his fist. "Think about it. Why did he do it?" asked Naruto. "What do you mean?" asked Sasuke, looking perplexed. Replied, "Itachi graduated the academy at the age of 7, awakened his Sharingan at the age of 8, became Chunin at the age of 10, joined Anbu at 11 and became an Anbu captain at the age of 13. He then thinks he need another famous accomplishment and adds maniac killer of the Uchiha clan leaders. I don't think so. Then, he must have had another reason. Something no one knows about," Sasuke said as a hint of color returned to his face as he gradually came to terms with the situation. The indolent Nara remarked, "You get it finally," as Naruto and Shikamaru grinned. Sasuke nodded and continued, "Then I will find him and know the truth. But, what if I become overpowered by hatred towards him when we meet?" Replied Naruto, "Then take it all out on me, because I am the only one who can bear your hatred with you." Sasuke was moved by what he had to say, and, "You can't. It is too much even for you. You don't know the hatred I have towards my brother. You didn't have any person to care about as family. You are always smiling. You don't know pain." With a sigh, Naruto turned to face Shikamaru, who gave him a nod. He then turned to Sasuke and said, "Sasuke, you don't know what you are talking about. Do you know how it is to be kicked out of an orphanage on your birthday? Do you know how it is to live all alone? Do you know how it is to be kicked out of shop just because you wanted a mask? Do you know how hard it is to be glared with hatred wherever you go? Do you know how hard it is to be hated by the whole village for something that wasn't even your fault?" "What do you mean, Naruto?" asked Sasuke and Choji, who both appeared startled and perplexed. "Have you noticed the glares he gets and the treatment he gets from the villagers?" Shikamaru asked them. Both boys gave a nod. Naruto continued, "There is a reason behind it. What I am going to tell you is an S-rank secret which can be revealed only by me and the Hokage. Death is the punishment for breaking the rule. Got it? What do you guys know about the Kyuubi attack that happened 10 years ago?" he asked after both boys nodded. Choji responded, 10 years ago, the Kyuubi attacked the village and caused a lot of death and destruction. The fourth Hokage gave his life to kill it and save the village, to the surprise of both boys." At this, Sasuke gave a nod. Shikamaru continued, "That is just a fabricated fairy tale to hide the actual truth of what really happened." It was a surprise to the boys. "What do you mean, Shikamaru? What is the actual truth?" Sasuke then questioned him. This time, Naruto replied, "Tailed beasts are nothing but chakra. They're huge masses of chakra. They can't be killed, because, after some time, they would reform. The fourth Hokage knew this. So, instead of giving his life to kill it, he gave his life to seal it in something or rather, someone." The two boys came to their realization. The boys now understood the harsh whispers, the cold looks, and the abuse. They both said, "It was you, right?" simultaneously. Naruto nodded and continued, "Whenever the villagers see me, they see the Kyuubi that attacked 10 years ago and not the blonde, innocent kid. Gigi made the law to prevent the younger generation from knowing the secret so that I could have a normal childhood with friends, but the hate seeps through. Everybody's hatred is focused on me and I shoulder them. I don't blame them for hating me because they had lost something precious for them that night of the attack. But I will prove them that I am not the Kyuubi but I am a proud citizen of Konoha. I will protect the village with my life and become the Hokage, just like the fourth." What Naruto had said touched both boys. Sasuke wanted to make amends because he was regretting what he had said earlier. So he inquired, "How did you beat the hatred? Why do you still want to prove the village wrong? Why do you wish to protect them? They treated you badly. The fourth Hokage made your life a living hell by sealing the fox inside you. Then why do you still idolize him?" "Because Dad believed in me when he sealed the Kyuubi inside me," Naruto replied with a smile. Naruto didn't realize his mistake until he noticed Shikamaru's face, palming and Choji and Sasuke's mouths hanging open in surprise and shock. "Do you mean to say that you are the son of the fourth Hokage?" Choji then inquired. The next person to speak was Shikamaru. "Isn't it obvious? Who else other than Yamanaka's had blonde hair? Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. There are far too many similarities to miss the connection. It's a wonder the village can't see it. They must be the biggest fools in the world." The fact that Naruto was the son of the Leaf's hero left both in awe. Sasuke, however, posed the question, why? Why did your own father lay such a curse on you? With an honest smile, Naruto replied, because my father believed in me. So did my mother. They believed in me that one day I would be able to befriend the Kyuubi and work together with him to protect the Leaf and defeat a certain person responsible for the Kyuubi incident of 10 years ago. Sorry, I can't tell you anything about the incident. Apart from that, my clan has always held the Kyuubi. Shikamaru questioned, what do you mean, Naruto? You still haven't told us everything, as the three of them were perplexed this time. Naruto responded by shrugging, must have had slipped my mind. Yeah, the first Hokage's wife was the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Her name was Uzumaki Mito and she is my ancestor. My mother, Kushina Uzumaki, was the second and I am the third Jinchuriki. They all three accepted the information with a nod. Shikamaru followed by saying, Sasuke, we will leave the final decision to you. Make the right choice. Do you want a lonely path of an avenger and fail to protect your mother, or choose the path filled with family and friends to find out what really happened that night? It is in the end up to you to decide. Think before you choose. Sasuke sat with his thoughts racing, soaking up the words. Choji was munching on the chips he had brought, and Shikamaru had begun to observe clouds. For once, Naruto was surprisingly quiet while sitting. The stillness needed for sage mode was something he was working on. After several minutes, Sasuke made the decision to stand up and respond. Everyone looked at him, and it was clear from their expressions that many of their choices were influenced by his one most significant choice. Sasuke breathed deeply and said, I have finally decided. I won't be an avenger. I will walk beside my friends and with my friends. I will find my brother, bring him to justice and find out the truth about what actually happened. While Naruto and Shikamaru sighed before grinning, Choji grinned in response. Then, saying, if so, we will all help you achieve your goal, Sasuke. Dabbeo. Naruto extended his fist for a fist bump. After giving the blonde inspirational Jinchuriki a nod and a fist bump, they all left for home. After 3 months. It had been 3 months since Sasuke's change of heart in the Uchiha massacre. Now that the snow had started to fall, Naruto and Shikamaru could finally start attending the academy. When Naruto thought about seeing his friends again, he became extremely anxious. However, Shikamaru had already cautioned him against rushing around claiming them as his friends because they were still unfamiliar with him. Although this slightly depressed Naruto, he made the decision to overcome the challenge, as he had done many times before. At last, he was heading to the academy to register his name. In addition to having his right hand bandaged up to the wrist, he had a red scarf on over his coat. He heard a commotion as he got closer to the academy. Naruto went there in order to discover what it was. His blood boiled at what he saw there, and he rushed in the direction of the chaos. While 2 others were laughing, a fat boy taunted Hinata, saying, Byakugan monster, Byakugan monster. Hey, stay away from her, or else, you will have to face me, Naruto yelled as he ran towards them just as Hinata was about to cry. After a pause, the boys resumed their laughter as soon as Naruto got there. Why are you laughing? Naruto snapped when he saw them laughing. You think you can take us on? Your hand is bandaged, and you think you can beat us? When nobody is trying to save another, the fat boy said, before bursting into laughter. That's when the bashful Hyuga saw Naruto's bandaged hand. She thought that despite the fact that his hand was bandaged, this boy, whom she hardly knew, was defending her. She had overheard others warning her to avoid him. However, she now believed that they were all mistaken and that the blonde boy was a good boy who was also cute. As she thought that, she blushed slightly. She was going to stop the boy because she didn't want him to get hurt when the boy and the bullies got into a fight. But in a flash, it was over. Unable to stand the bullies' taunts of Hinata, Naruto gave the fat boy a right uppercut that sent him flying backwards and instantly knocked him unconscious. The boy on the left was then knocked out by a hook he delivered. Finally, a well-placed side kick to the chest sent the boy on the right rolling back. 3 seconds later, the fight was over. The 3 boys scrambled away after the third, who had not been knocked unconscious, woke up his friends. Hinata was taken aback by how quickly the blonde had defeated the bullies. Then, even though it only took 3 seconds, she saw that the boy's scarf was now on the ground after being stepped on during the fight. She picked it up and sat down. As Naruto saw her pick up the scarf, he took a seat as well. In order for him to accept the scarf, Hinata held it to him. It would have been nice if it had been in better shape, but Naruto simply shook his head and said, "Keep it. I don't need it. Think of it as a gift." Hinata was taken aback. Few people had shown her kindness, given her a present, or even defended her. Thank why? You? Was her exclamation of joy. Well, I will get going then. By the way, I am Naruto Uzumaki and I will be the Hokage one day, Dadbeo, Naruto said with a smile as he stood up and sprinted in the direction of the academy. As the boy ran toward the academy, Hinata watched from her seat. She held the scarf tighter in her hands for a while before a smile appeared on her face. In order to enroll her name, she also got up and began to walk towards the academy. Office of the Hokage. That night, Shikamaru and Naruto were standing outside the Hokage's office, anticipating entry. For the first time, Shikamaru restrained Naruto from charging in. The Hokage was in a meeting with the elders, which was the reason. The elders left and they were called inside after waiting for a few minutes, which seemed like hours to the blonde boy. The two boys walked into the Hokage's office and sat down. After dismissing the ANBUs present, the Hokage sealed the room. Naruto, what is it that I hear? Is it true that you got into a fight? He said at last. Well, the bullies were insulting Hinata. I couldn't control myself, Naruto replied with a foxy smile and a hand rubbing the back of his head. Shikamaru smiled as the Hokage laughed at this. Well, someone sure is passionate about someone, the Hokage continued. At this, Naruto turned a deep red. The Hokage's tone became more worried as he asked his surrogate grandson, make sure that the feelings stay away from your judgment, Naruto. By the way, why is your right hand bandaged? Were you hurt somewhere? Replied, no Gigi, I am not hurt. The reason I bandaged my hand is because the great old Gigi's powers are awakening. Well, that is what Kurama says. Anyway, see it for yourself. Shikamaru and the Hokage realized that Naruto was referring to the Sage of Six Paths when he said, great old Gigi. After that, Naruto took off the bandages from his hand. The Hokage and Shikamaru saw a sun-like mark on his hand's palm after he had taken off all the bandages. What is that mark, Naruto? Shikamaru questioned him. Replied, according to the great old Gigi and Kurama, that mark is half of the sealing formula for sealing the Jubi Jinchuriki. The other half will be inherited by the bearer of the yin half of his chakra. It is for the same seal as the one that made the moon. When the third Hokage learned that his surrogate grandson had such power with him, pride grew inside of him. Shikamaru was also pleased that his friend was so humble and silly despite having such a powerful ability. This made them both smile. So, you can access the powers of the Sage of Six Paths now, Naruto? Inquired the third Hokage. Naruto nodded his head and replied, no, according to Kurama, only a part of it has awakened. The rest will awaken gradually. He says that I might have access to the healing powers and some of the basic seals. That is all. I am not yet able to support all the powers that was given to me. If that is all, Naruto, we can go and get you supplies for your academy now, shall we? The Hokage asked after nodding. Yeah, that's all Gigi. Let's go, Naruto answered. The Hokage then created a few shadow clones to finish the paperwork while he and the two boys departed. Several days later, Shikamaru felt uneasy, so were Sasuke and Choji. Naruto had not yet arrived on the first day of the academy. Together with their parents, they had all decided to attend the academy. Well, those who had won, anyway. However, Naruto remained unaccounted for even after the three boys had reached the academy and were standing outside. They began to believe that he had been so depressed by the prospect of losing his parents that he had skipped the academy that day. At last, Naruto entered the gates with the Hokage just as the academy teachers were ready to speak to the parents who had come. The fact that Naruto had not completely skipped class caused the three boys to exhale in relief. Naruto was left there by the Hokage, who waved goodbye before departing. To the surprise of their parents, the four boys immediately formed a group. Along with his mother Yoshino Nara and father Shikaku Nara, Shikamaru had arrived. Choji had come with his mother and father, Shoza Akamichi. Makoto Uchiha, Sasuke's mother, had come. As soon as the boys gathered somewhere else, these parents, Inoichi Yamanaka, and his wife joined them. Naruto Uzumaki was the subject of their conversation. Is it good to allow your children to be with that boy? I mean, he is the, asked Inoichi's wife first. Yes, even I intended to ask the same question. Do you think you are doing the right thing? Inoichi added in support of his viewpoint. Of course it is. He is in fact a very nice boy, if you get to know him, was the first response given by Choji's mother. Yes, he is. Poor boy, he doesn't have many friends though. So, let him have some friends to be with, Yoshino added in her own words. But, he could be influenced by the thing inside him, Inoichi's wife repeated. Makoto Uchiha, Sasuke's mother, no, I don't think so. He has strong will of fire. He is the boy who brought my son out of his path of self-destruction. I am grateful for that. Even the new clan head, Shisui, has taken a liking to the boy. We are behind him, from here on. The fact that 2 prominent Uchiha clan members were siding with the village Jinchuriki shocked everyone. Shoza followed by saying, "My son does not have many friends, because most of them pick on him for his size. But Naruto was one of the first to accept him and become friend with him. Shoji has high regards for the boy and he has good influence over him, making him work harder on clan jutsus and taijutsu. I am thankful for the boy too. We of the Akamichi clan are behind him too." Then Shikaku spoke, "Now that you mention it, Shikamaru has been friend with the boy for over 2 years now. They are as inseparable as Choji and he are. He has also put his laziness aside to train thanks to the boy. I have hardly seen my son speak of anyone with respect or praise, but he has only respect and praise for Naruto whenever we speak of him. It is as if he knows something about the boy that none of us knows. And it also looks like he has figured out Naruto's secret as well, by the way he speaks." Everyone was taken aback when Shikaku revealed that his son had set aside the fabled Nara's sloth to train and that he respected the boy. "What do you mean, Shikaku? How can someone respect someone so young?" Inoichi then questioned. Then he replied, "That is a mystery even for me. But one thing is for certain, my son's growth in strength and skill is definitely due to Naruto's influence and I owe him for that. And also, my son trusts him, so do I. We of the Nara clan are also behind him." "Well, that's for you. I will still advise my daughter to stay away from him just in case. We will know what happens soon enough," said Inoichi's wife after hearing all of this. The parents' conversation came to an end at that point. Alongside the boys, Shikamaru responded, "Why were you late, Naruto? Were you intending to skip the academy today?" Everyone noticed that Naruto's mood had slightly declined. "You know," he replied, "I don't have parents." When Sasuke finally said, "Then where were you?" the 3 boys flinched. Replied, "I was at my parents' graves till Gigi came to bring me here. Well, at least I have some grandfather figure." As Naruto said this, his mood improved. In order to make his friend's day, Shoji replied, "Hey guys, why don't you come over to our clan compound today? We will have a feast because I am entering the academy. Shikamaru's family has already been invited. Sasuke, why don't you bring your mom too? Naruto, you should also come too. We will have lots of ramen." "Ramen, I will be there, Choji, Datbeo," was Naruto's response when he heard the word ramen, and his mood completely changed. The group's mood significantly improved as everyone laughed at Naruto's ramen obsession. Choji continued, "Has anyone else noticed that we have been training together a lot less?" "Yes, you are right. So, why don't we train together every day from here on?" Sasuke said, nodding. In their daily training, Shikamaru and Naruto had already considered this. They were aware that their 2 friends would eventually request permission to train with them. Thus, they had already devised a strategy to get past it. While the other 2 would train with them in one of the 3 clan compounds in the evening, Naruto and Shikamaru would train alone in the morning at their own private training ground. So Shikamaru responded, "It is a good idea. We can train together in the evening while we can utilize the morning for our private training. We can train at our clan compounds alternatively. How about it?" "Yes, that is a good idea. We will talk with our parents for permission to use the clan grounds for training," said Choji and Sasuke simultaneously as they both nodded. Shikamaru nodded and continued, "If so, then we can begin today. Let us begin with my clan's grounds, then tomorrow Choji's and then Sasuke's. After that, the cycle repeats." As they returned to the academy, everyone nodded. The classroom at the academy. The freshly enrolled pupils were already seated in the classroom, anticipating the arrival of their teacher. Some of them were ninja clan heirs, but the majority came from civilian families. This included the Aburame clan's Shino Aburame, the Inazuka clan's Kiba Inazuka, the Hyuga clan's Hinata Hyuga, and the Yamanaka clan's Ino Yamanaka. The 4 boys headed to the classroom, and when Sasuke opened the door, all eyes were on them as they walked in one by one. Sasuke suddenly went pale when he heard a loud squeal coming from somewhere. As Sasuke hurried to a seat at the end of a table and reserved the seats in front of him and next to him for his friends, the 4 of them thought, "Fangirls." Then Choji came in and moved aside to take Sasuke's reserved seat. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Naruto as he entered. He stopped dead in his tracks when that occurred. He was brought back to reality by Shikamaru's hand on his shoulder. The 2 boys then proceeded to the seats and took a seat. Shikamaru and Choji sat in front of Naruto and Sasuke, while the 2 sat next to each other. Sasuke or Naruto had the attention of the majority of the class. However, it was the fangirls for the latter. While they chatted among themselves, the rest of the class waited for the teacher. A chunin with a scar across his nose finally made his way into the classroom after a while of waiting. Shikamaru and Naruto both grinned upon seeing Iruka Sensei, their former academy teacher, again. Iruka's arrival did not cause the class to fall silent. Iruka then yelled, "Quiet down class," using big-headed jutsu, which is well known among academy instructors. When the terrified voice was heard, everyone fell silent. As the class finally settled down, Iruka said, "Good, now, let me introduce myself. I am Iruka Amino. I am a chunin of our village, Konohagakure, and I am going to be your academy instructor for the next 3 years. Now, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Tell the class your name, your likes and dislikes, and finally your goals and ambitions." After that, each person gave their introduction. It was Sasuke's turn at last. He stood up and said, "I am Sasuke Uchiha of the Uchiha clan. I like my friends and training with them. I dislike traitors. My goal in life is to bring someone to justice and help my friends to achieve their goals." At this introduction, the majority of the girls in the room squealed. They all agreed that Sasuke was cool and that his intentions were either admirable or enigmatic. This caused Iruka and the 4 boys to sigh. Then it was Choji's turn. He stood up. "I am Choji Akamichi of the Akamichi clan. I like my friends, training with them, and food. I dislike anyone who takes the last bite, those who call me fat, and those who hurt my friends. My goal is to become a strong jonin, a strong clan leader, and to help my friends achieve their goal." He sat down, and the majority of the students in the room laughed at his introduction. Then he stood up and said, "I am Shikamaru Nara of the Nara clan. I like watching clouds, game of shogi, and my friends. I dislike people who can't see beyond the first layer of anything, people who judge others without knowing them, and people who kill others for fun. My goal is to become a strong ninja, succeed my father as the clan head." He stopped, chuckled, and continued, "and become the advisor of the Orange Hokage, I guess." Naruto also smiled during his introduction, but the students remained silent since none of them could understand it. When their friend introduced themselves, Sasuke and Choji simply grinned. Iruka appeared taken aback by the boy's maturity. At last, Naruto stood up and said, "I am Naruto Uzumaki. I like Ichiraku's ramen, cup ramen, my friends, training, Jiji, pervy sage, Kurama. I am touched," said Kurama sarcastically, "Konoha and the tales of a gutsy ninja, and many other things. I dislike cold ramen, people who try to take over the world, people who hurt my friends, and some other things. My goal is to make sure that every ninja can trust every other ninja, to break the cycle of hatred and to become the greatest Hokage, Datbeo." Once more, Iruka was shocked, but none of them could understand it and remained silent. When he introduced himself, the 3 boys grinned. Now Iruka was doubting himself. He had been aware of the boy's condition and his reputation as a prankster. He thought the boy would say something ridiculous, but when he said something genuinely admirable, he began to second-guess his choice to ignore him. Before deciding whether or not to ignore the boy, as the other teachers had done, he intended to pay closer attention to him. Iruka finally said, "Okay, now that the introductions are over, let us begin with the classes." After gathering his thoughts, the academy classes then started. That afternoon, later. "Wow, I had totally forgotten how boring academy was," Naruto said, extending his arms. Shikamaru nodded and replied, "Yep, and couple it with us already knowing everything in it. Well, at least me everything and you the practical ones. It is really a drag," replied Naruto. "It really is. I wish we could just skip the academy and become genins, but we can't. Also, we have to be dead lasts again. That is cruel, Datbeo. Well, look on the bright side, we can sleep all we want without worrying. We are going to be dead after all," Shikamaru remarked with a laugh. "That's the only silver lining, though. I suppose my pranking starts this week, Datbeo," Naruto said, nodding. "And this time, even though it will be a drag, I will be helping quite a while," Shikamaru said with a smile. "Really, Shikamaru? You are the best, Datbeo," Naruto exclaimed with wide eyes. His antics made Shikamaru smile. Then he saw the other 2 boys approaching them. "Now, no talking of the future or the other timeline. They are back," he said, turning to face Naruto. With a nod, Naruto and Shikamaru took a seat beneath a large tree. They were joined by Sasuke and Choji, who sat down beside them. The 4 of them started eating the bento boxes of lunch their parents had given them. All except Naruto, who simply opened a scroll and used a few hand seals to reveal its contents. A kettle of hot water and a cup of ramen, no surprise, and started to eat. "I thought you had begun to eat some healthy food once in a while?" Shikamaru inquired after observing that. "I didn't pack anything because I didn't expect to come here today and before you give me some of yours. No, I am perfectly happy with my ramen for today," Naruto replied after slurping some of the ramen. Don't worry, Datbeo. Naruto, when we entered the classroom, you froze for some time. Why? Shikamaru asked after the three boys sighed at his ramen obsession and carried on eating. You know that I can sense negative emotions, right? Naruto said, tensing up a little. While Choji and Sasuke appeared shocked and inquired, since when? Only Shikamaru nodded. I guess I forgot to tell you, Datbeo. Being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi has its own advantages. I can sense and even hear negative emotions all around me, if they are strong, from as far as 50 miles away, Naruto said, grinning foxy and scratching the back of his head with his hand. That is awesome, was said simultaneously by Choji and Sasuke, who both appeared impressed. Today, when I entered the room, I froze because I was surprised, Naruto said with a smile. Surprised? The three boys asked, looking surprised. Naruto replied with a nod, yes, I was surprised by the amount of negative emotions present in the room. Most of them were directed towards me. They were doubt on why I was to be avoided, fear as to why their parents had advised them to stay away from me, and even some hate. Luckily, they were all from civilian families. The three boys' ire had started to grow during Naruto's explanation. They were going to go give those students a hard time, but Naruto went on without observing their mood swing. These were not the ones I was actually surprised about. It was the ones from the clan heirs, Naruto added, ignoring the three boys' emotions. Negative feelings from them? What was it? Shikamaru asked, and the three boys calmed down and listened carefully. Replied, I will tell you exactly what I sensed and heard. From Shino, it was, will anyone become my friend after knowing about my clan's speciality? From Kiba, will I be able to meet mom's expectations? Can I really become the best? From Ino, am I good enough to be a kunoichi? Will I be able to be the best? From Hinata, am I strong enough? Will I be good enough to become a ninja? Among others. So, they doubt themselves, huh? Should we do something about this? Sasuke asked after the three boys nodded. Not much at the moment. We will see what happens and then move from there, Shikamaru pondered for a while. They all nodded, and they all returned to the academy after eating lunch. 3 years was going to be a long time. 1 year later, Sasuke, Naruto, Shikamaru, and Choji had made names for themselves at the academy. While Naruto, Shikamaru, and Choji are the dead lasts, Sasuke is the rookie of the year. Though they had turned into dead lasts, Sasuke was aware that none of them were weak. Choji possessed the most powerful punches and smashes because of the specialization of his clan. Considering what he had observed from the training regimens in Naruto, Shikamaru was already at a low to mid level of Jonin. Among them, Naruto was unquestionably the strongest. During their training sessions, Sasuke had never been able to defeat Naruto in a spar. Sasuke claimed that he was easily a high Jonin level. They were all dead lasts, though. While Choji had opted to remain with his best friend, Shikamaru was far too lazy to earn the grades necessary to win Rookie of the Year. It appeared as though Naruto was purposefully hiding his immense strength and skill. In the academy, he had defeated Naruto in every single spar. He initially believed that Naruto was becoming distracted during a battle or that the training with the three boys and Shisui was helping him catch up. However, he had learned that it was neither, despite the fact that he had gained strength from the training. Rather, Naruto's significant holding back had become blatantly obvious. He recalled how he had confronted Naruto about it at one point, and how pleased and surprised he was by the response he received. I was astonished by Naruto's insights and delighted to have a friend who was willing to forfeit the top title in order to join his team. Rewind. Sasuke had defeated Naruto in a spar at the academy for the third consecutive week. He had already begun to suspect Naruto of being reticent, and he had verified it that day. He had purposefully lowered his defenses to allow Naruto to take advantage of them. Any deceased person could have seen it and taken advantage of it. Despite having witnessed it, Naruto did not take advantage of it. His doubts were validated by this. It was now lunchtime, and he had made the decision to confront Naruto about it. He had stayed back and let the others go. After a while, he finally went out to meet the group of friends. Why Sasuke had asked the three boys to proceed baffled them. However, they had ignored the thoughts because they believed he might have been involved. But they weren't prepared for him to glare at them. They all stood up to ask him what was wrong. With a furious expression on his face, Sasuke approached the group and went directly to Naruto, punching him in the face and knocking him back. They were all three surprised by this. Ow, Sasuke, what was that for? Naruto asked, getting up and massaging his face. Why do you hold back in our spars? Sasuke snapped back. What do you mean, Sasuke? I don't hold back, said Naruto, perplexed. Sasuke kept on screaming, don't lie to me. You are always holding back against me. I let my guard down deliberately to confirm my doubts and your actions confirmed it. Now, answer me, why do you hold back? Shikamaru had opted to remain silent during this exchange, allowing the two to work out their differences on their own. Additionally, he had prevented Shoji from stepping in. You really do want the real reason, don't you, Sasuke? Naruto replied with a simple smile. Yes, I do. Now, don't lie to me, said Sasuke, nodding his head. Naruto laughed and replied, do you know how genin teams are formed? Let me tell you the most common ones. Now, Shikamaru and Shoji will be in the same team with Ino because it's the Ino Shika Sho combination that has been there for generations. Next, there will be a tracker team, to which neither of us will be selected. So, the last traditional team will be the one in which the dead last will be put in the same team as the prodigy of the year. Since you are the prodigy, I have to be the dead last to be in the same team as you. Sasuke was taken aback and shocked by this response. He was utterly humbled by it. In order for them to be on the same team, this genuine friend was willing to forego his grades. His words, "Thank you, Naruto," were delivered with a smile. Naruto simply rubbed the back of his head and smiled foxy. Shoji and Shikamaru both grinned at this. Well, there is one other reason too, Shikamaru said. Unable to comprehend, Sasuke questioned, one other reason? What's that? We would all be dead by now if he didn't hold back, Shikamaru retorted. They all burst out laughing at this. In order for them to be together at the same time, Sasuke made sure to win Prodigy of the Year after accepting that Naruto was dead last. It appeared to the other students that Naruto was a bothersome attempt to brag by fighting Sasuke and failing. Sasuke was enraged, but he controlled his feelings by recalling his conversation with Naruto. Iruka and Naruto had rekindled their brotherly bond and become close once more. Like him, Iruka had begun to view Naruto as a younger brother who also happened to be familyless. They were currently eating lunch at the academy, where they usually go. Naruto, don't you think it's about time we start to change the thoughts of our classmates? Was the first thing Shikamaru said. Naruto smiled and replied, yeah, I know. If we don't start now, it will become a big problem later on. You have to hear their emotions. It's been getting worse and worse. So, whom do we start with? Shikamaru asked after the three boys nodded. Replied, Shino. He has the worst emotions as he hardly has any friends thanks to his clan techniques. Well, it's Shino then to start with, Shikamaru said after the three boys nodded. Alongside Shino. Shino stood under a tree by himself. He had no friends and few people spoke to him. His clan's specialty was largely to blame. Bugs were the specialty of his clan, the Aburame clan. However, seeing bugs all around him frightened everyone because they weren't the most popular things. He therefore had no friends. He began to question whether he would ever be able to make friends as a result of this fact. He had been told by his father, Shibi Aburame, his best friend, and his brother figure, Torun Aburame, that it was difficult to make friends with people in his clan, but that if he did, he would have to cherish and guard the friendship. He now questioned whether he would ever be able to maintain a close friendship, much less value it. He was startled to feel a hand on his shoulder at that precise moment, but he kept his composure and turned to face the person. The prodigy of the year, the three dead lasts, and the blonde dead last's hand resting on his shoulder were standing there. Additionally, he was grinning at him. Shino was perplexed by this since he rarely had anyone approach him, much less hold his shoulder. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Shikamaru Nara, Shoji Akamichi, how can I help you? He said monotonously. You don't have to be so stiff, Shino, nor do you have to doubt yourself, Naruto replied with a smile. Shino didn't understand this. What do you mean, Naruto? He then inquired. Still beaming, Naruto responded, you don't have to doubt yourself on whether you would be able to be friend with anyone just because you are from the Aburame clan. After all, the Aburame clan is a respected clan in Konoha. You know about my clan? Then you must know about us, Shino said, empathetically. Naruto replied with a nod, even though the bugs creep me, I still find it awesome that you can control them and talk to them. You don't need to worry about not having friends anymore, Shino. After all, we are all friends, Datbeo. The four boys then departed. Shino thought, I guess what people say about Naruto is incorrect, as he watched them leave. After all, he's a good guy. Why do most people despise him? He knew that he had made his first friends and that his doubts were gradually fading. Perhaps there was still hope. He just needed to cherish it and keep it safe. He never understood why his Kakaichu were fussing over a significant amount of chakra presence during all of this. How, after all, could students in the academy possess such a large chakra? He pondered. After 5 months. 5 months had passed since the conversation with Shino. He even joined the group because he had become good friends with the 4 boys. Naruto and the others were unconcerned about it. He had even participated in their group trainings, where he was completely taken aback by Shikamaru and Naruto's true strength and skill. But he couldn't solve the riddle of the enormous chakra presence. Regarding Naruto and Shikamaru, their development had slowed but not halted. Shikamaru had started practicing his elemental and clan jutsus after finishing the nature transformation exercises. Naruto had begun to practice using his Kyuubi chakra cloak's various modes. Shino's father, Shibi Aburame, had not openly endorsed the friendship between his son and Naruto. However, he wasn't opposed to it either. Indeed, he had counseled Shino to follow his own ideas and not listen to others. Additionally, he had advised him to maintain the friendship if it was valuable. However, he and his clan became Naruto's new supporters after witnessing Naruto and his group of friends, as well as Shino's development as a possible shinobi. The foundation of animosity toward Naruto had begun to erode gradually but steadily. Right now, the group was at the academy. Naruto and Shikamaru had chosen to doze off during class. As usual, Sasuke and Shino were listening to Iruka-sensei while Choji was munching on his pack of barbecue flavored chips. Iruka ignored the 2 sleeping dead lasts after making an unsuccessful attempt to persuade Naruto and Shikamaru to attend his lecture. Fortunately, lunchtime provided a break for everyone. The 5 boys were seated beneath a rather large tree that they had established as their regular location. Speaking up, Shikamaru asked, "Who's next?" Naruto responded, "Kiba, I guess." Got a lot of confidence problems, while the others, with the exception of Shino, understood what he meant. "What do you mean?" Shino asked after the 3 boys nodded. He responded, "We are trying to get our friends to lose their negative emotions or something like that." Sasuke's attempt at a joke caused Shikamaru and Naruto to perspire. "We are trying to do what we did to you. Erase everyone's doubts about themselves, so that we could all be friends," Choji decided to say in response to Shino's query. Shino nodded because he thought Choji's response was clearer than Sasuke's. Thus, the 5 boys headed for the heir of the Inuzuka clan. Alongside Kiba. Kiba questioned his ability to meet his mother's standards. In the academy's spars, he had defeated nearly every student in his class. He had not yet faced Shikamaru, Naruto, or Choji. The only opponents he had lost to were Shino and Sasuke. He was furious that Sasuke and Shino had defeated him. He had also been placed with the dead last of his class due to his poor test scores, which had gotten him into trouble. He became enraged upon realizing that Sasuke, Shino, and the other 3 dead lasts were approaching him. He wore the mask of mocking the group to conceal it. "So, you have come to accept that I am much better than all of you, have you? Is it because you want me in your group? It must be true because I am awesome after all. Maybe the Uchiha is not up to his mark in the group, I suppose. So, you needed a better leader to lead your pathetic group, is it? Is that why you came to me?" asked one of the boys. Sasuke was about to respond when Shikamaru and Naruto burst out laughing, and his blood began to boil. Choji soon joined them in their laughter, and Shino laughed silently. This made Kiba very angry. He then said, "You come to me for help and now you laugh at me? What, you want to fight, huh? Well then, get ready to fight." "Kiba, we came here neither to ask for your help nor to laugh at you," Naruto said after they all stopped laughing. "Then why did you come to me?" Kiba asked, refusing to accept the response. "To clear your doubts about yourself," Shikamaru replied. This response perplexed Kiba. He then asked, "What do you mean by clearing my doubts? I have no doubts." Naruto nodded his head and replied, "Kiba, it is no good to hide your doubts from us. We are your friends, after all. We know about your predicament, whether you will be able to live up to your mother's expectations. You should not hide your problems and doubts from friends." The words, "So what? You can't do anything about it," caused Kiba's face to fall. Replied Shikamaru, "Who said so? We didn't. Look Kiba, never try to hide anything that troubles you from friends because they are the ones who can actually help you." Then Naruto spoke, "Yes Kiba. Your mother may have high expectations for you, but that doesn't mean that you have to beat everyone around to live up to that. Instead, you should become someone who is strong and good enough to lead one of the most important clans of Konoha. For that, you need friends along the way. But, what you have doing is hiding behind a mask of arrogance and haughtiness. That just pushes friends away from you. Remember, you need friends to get better and stronger. That's why we are here, Kiba. I guess you are right. Maybe I will listen to what you have to say. Then, I will not only become a clan leader but also the Hokage. I will leave you all in dust skies. I will be the best among us friends," Kiba said, grinning after giving it some thought. He then began to run while holding his pet dog, Akamaru, on his head. He was aware that he no longer needed to question himself. He would get powerful. He would gain strength from his companions. After grinning at their new friend's antics, Naruto and the group headed to their class for another dull lecture from Iruka-sensei. After 6 months, Kiba was now considered an unofficial group member. He occasionally spent time with them and occasionally did not. He no longer detested Shino or Sasuke. Instead, they were engaged in a one-sided rivalry which was going on between them. He still couldn't defeat them. Thus, he continued to make fun of them, albeit less often. Because of his rivalry with Naruto, he had developed a new habit of declaring that he would become Hokage and that he had a better chance of doing so. With the group, Naruto's antics had become rather widespread, well-known, and annoying. Shikamaru even frequently assisted him. Because they didn't want to cause trouble, the other members of the group didn't. However, they thoroughly enjoyed his antics. His antics did not spare even ANBUs. One of his pranks required the ANBUs to work in bright orange for the entire day. Additionally, there was a rumor that his prank had rendered the ANBU headquarters inoperable for an entire week. Defacements of the Hokage monument occurred nearly every other week. He even threatened the clan compounds. Remarkably, each time he and Shikamaru were apprehended, the Hokage released them with a gentle warning and a hearty laugh. Additionally, Iruka was the one who caught them each time. Even when the ANBUs failed, he would somehow manage to locate them. Right now, they were in another dull class taught by Iruka-sensei, dozing off while the other boys listened. The two boys got up and ran out of the classroom, rising up a cloud of dust, as if a miracle had just happened, as soon as lunchtime rolled around. At this, Iruka-sensei and everyone else started to perspire. The 3 other boys soon joined the 2 where they usually were. To everyone's surprise, Shino spoke first. "So, who is next?" she asked. "All those who are left are girls," replied Naruto with a sly smile. The boys all turned to face Sasuke at this point, who gulped and said, "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Well, 2 of them are your fan girls, and you have a crush on one of them," Shikamaru replied with a smile. "Since when is she on the list?" Sasuke inquired, blushing slightly. With a sly smile and his hands behind his head, Naruto replied, "Well, we thought we would add her to the list too since you seem to have a crush on her." "What about Hinata? You seem to have a massive crush on her, and she seems to have a crush on you too," Sasuke said, blushing a little more. Naruto blushed this time and stammered, "Oye, don't say anything about me, it's just..." At this, the other 3 boys burst out laughing. Even Sasuke joined in their laughter when he saw them laughing. Naruto was really annoyed by this. "Don't laugh at me, Shikamaru, because we will see when we meet Tamari," he said. Shikamaru blushed slightly before abruptly ceasing to laugh. Even Naruto bit his tongue and stopped talking after realizing his mistake. When Sasuke, Shino, and Choji heard this new name, their ears perked up. "So, Shikamaru, who is this Tamari?" asked Choji, smiling. "Well, you see, it doesn't matter. Let's get back to work, shall we?" "So, who is next?" was Shikamaru's flimsy response. "It's up to Sasuke to decide. I would rather leave Hinata for the last," Naruto said, observing that Choji was not about to give up. "Why should I decide? I am not going to do anything," said Sasuke quickly. Shikamaru let out a sigh and said, "This girly business is leading us nowhere. None of us, who have to do what we have to do, are ready. So, we better leave it out for now and focus on the last year of our academy for now." "I suppose that their emotions might have had gone up by now, Naruto?" "Yeah, I guess so. There isn't as much as it was then," Naruto replied. The negative emotions part was purposefully omitted because Shino was still unaware that Naruto was housing the Kyuubi. Sasuke and Choji nodded in understanding. Shino nodded as he said, "Even I agree with Shikamaru. This is the last year of the Shinobi Academy for us. So, we would better focus on it, so that all of us might pass." He had meant Shikamaru and Naruto, who had the lowest grade of all of them, when he said, "all of us." As they all returned to the classroom, Naruto muttered to Shikamaru, "Well, not all of us are passing, at this point." Shikamaru replied, "Right, we still have to deal with Mizuki. You won't be alone this time. I will be with you, just in case, to make sure that you leave him alive." Whispering, "That's good to hear," Naruto smiled. Then he whispered, "That is for the slip up," and Shikamaru punched him in the gut. With a, "I am sorry," expression, Naruto held his stomach. After a year. For the group of boys, the final year at the academy was just like the first 2. It was still pay. Wrapped. Attention for Shino and Sasuke, eat. Through the class for Choji, and sleep. Through the class for Naruto and Shikamaru. They stopped there, erasing the doubts of fellow classmates program because they were concentrating on the final year of academy. As the day of graduation drew closer, Naruto became more and more tense. However, he kept it a secret from everyone but Shikamaru. Kurama was also not a huge guarantee. Instead, he was more interested in tearing Mizuki apart. Therefore, if he could, he was inclined to disregard Kurama's advice. Their chakra reserves had grown even more as a result of their private training. Shikamaru's Jonin level had risen from high to low. Elite. Given his already enormous chakra reserves, Naruto's was largely irrelevant. They were also more adept at controlling their chakras. Naruto was at a high level of Chunin. His enormous chakra reserves were the reason for this. It was already at the mid-Jonin level for Shikamaru. The collection of Naruto's jutsu had not expanded. Rather, his attention had been on refining his existing jutsus. Additionally, he was working on updating Rasengan with new features, and he had so far been successful in creating water release, Rasengan and lightning release. Rasengan. He was attempting to add the earth element after mastering these two. However, he was unable to release the fire. Shikamaru now had a few earth and fire release jutsus in his library of elemental jutsus. He had become so proficient in clan jutsu that he could now make new jutsus himself. They had also trained well in groups. Naruto and Shikamaru continued to conceal their true powers, displaying only hints of them. Outside of the academy, Sasuke was still unable to defeat Naruto in sparring. Even the boys' parents had made the decision to support their training. They had chosen not to spy on Naruto and Shikamaru despite having glimpses of their true abilities. They had believed that concealing their skills was necessary for some reason. Given Naruto's condition, the explanation appeared to be fairly clear. However, Shikamaru couldn't even connect the dots, let alone identify them. Graduation day soon arrived at the academy, and Naruto decided to play practical jokes to release his pent-up tension. And Shikamaru, who was unsure of how he had been convinced, had decided to assist him with it. Rewind. Naruto attempted to convince Shikamaru to accompany him on his final prank by saying, "Come on Shikamaru, it will ease up our tensions. Besides, once we graduate, we won't be able to pull off such pranks again. It's going to be such a drag." Naruto, Shikamaru sighed. "It will let us see how far we have come with our training. Anbu will be a good challenge, and we can show the village a glimpse of what we are capable of," Naruto said after giving it some thought. "All right, Naruto, but only this time," Shikamaru sighed as he finally gave in. "Yes, Datbeo," said Naruto, smiling and punching the air. He referred to his final prank as being identical to the one he had planned in the prior timeline, but larger. As a result, Konoha was the target of several practical jokes. Naruto was taking full advantage of his talent for accomplishing the seemingly impossible. Even though he was painting the Hokage monument, nobody paid any attention to him. Nobody noticed him until he was applying the finishing touch to his father's face. A Chunin standing beneath the monument yelled, "Naruto, get down here. Stop your prank at once." "Ha ha ha, losers. None of you can do it, but I can. That's why I did this," Naruto said, laughing aloud. The Chunins became enraged and abruptly began chasing Naruto, who dropped the paint and fled while laughing uncontrollably. Shikamaru joined Naruto as more Chunins began pursuing him on the rooftops of Konoha's business district. "All set?" asked Naruto as he ran. Retorting, "All hell will break loose right about now," Shikamaru grinned. Several color explosions began to burst at various locations throughout Konoha as soon as he finished speaking, and the cry, "Naruto," could be heard clearly throughout the entire city. The two boys chuckled as they fled from a crowd of villagers, Chunins, and, surprisingly, orange-painted ANBUs. The fact that the two boys were effortlessly avoiding the group that was pursuing them irritated everyone. They eventually succeeded in leaving the villagers and Chunins behind with ease. The ANBUs were now the only ones pursuing the boys, and they were catching up to them gradually. The boys, now struggling to get away, were running in the direction of the academy where Iruka taught. They were also concerned about Naruto's whereabouts. "Where is Naruto? I hope all is well with him. Graduation day is quickly approaching. Where is Shikamaru, by the way? Is he with Naruto?" As she lectured the class on the shinobi codes of conduct, Iruka was reflecting. At the exact moment he had this thought, two figures that were clearly Shikamaru and Naruto burst through the classroom window at Jonin. Speed and left through the door. At that speed, Iruka could hardly identify the boys, and then 6 more orange colored ANBUs did the same thing as the 2 boys, leaving Iruka speechless. As the rest of the classroom erupted in excitement and whispers started to be heard, Choji's and Sasuke's eyes widened at the sight. Turning to face Sasuke, Choji whispered, "Was that?" "Yes, I think so too," Sasuke said, nodding. Recovering from the shock, Iruka ran outside in the same direction as the 2 boys. After a few minutes, Iruka was able to accomplish what the ANBUs had failed to do in a matter of minutes, much to the 2 boys' dismay, by holding them by the ears in front of the classroom full of giggling students. Defaced the Hokage monument, set off explosions across the commercial district of Konoha, paint graffiti on the walls of the Hokage's office and explode a big orange paint bomb in the Anbu HQ. "Did I leave anything out, you guys?" Iruka asked the 2 of them. While the rest of the class gaped in disbelief, the 2 boys simply snickered in response. "I don't know what I should do with you two. Shikamaru, now even you have begun pranking with Naruto. I expected that you would stop him, not join him. As a punishment, everyone will show their transformation jutsu as a practice for graduation exams," Iruka replied. Everyone gave the 2 boys, who were now laughing aloud, dagger-like looks at this point. As Naruto and Shikamaru demonstrated their transformation jutsu, everyone yelled, "This is all your fault." It was soon Naruto's turn to perform the transformation jutsu, and Shikamaru smiled, knowing exactly what he was going to do. Naruto yelled, "Sexy jutsu," and made the hand signal for his first original jutsu. As the jutsu took effect, there was a sudden little burst of smoke. A busty blonde girl with only smoke covering her assets stood in Naruto's place as the smoke cleared. Iruka was knocked back flying as soon as he saw this, his nose blowing up with blood splattering out. "Don't use such a hideous and useless jutsu, you idiot. Now go and clean the Hokage monument, you two," he yelled as he hit Naruto, who had transformed back, on the head as soon as he recovered. Soon after, while laughing at such a special day, the 2 boys went off to clean the monument. For the 2 travelers, it was undoubtedly a good way to decompress. The monument to Hokage. While rubbing the paint off his father's face, Naruto remarked, "The prank was awesome." Shikamaru grinned as he removed the paint from the 3rd Hokage's face and said, "Agreed." "You ready for tomorrow?" Naruto asked abruptly, his expression turning serious. "I am the one who has to ask you that. Are you ready for tomorrow? Because tomorrow is the day that all hell breaks loose. Everything begins tomorrow with the Mizuki incident," Shikamaru said, mirroring his expression. Naruto smiled and said, "It would be a waste of all these years if we aren't ready. Mizuki incident, mission to wave, Chunin exams. Too many things in a short time. If we aren't ready, no one will be. Also, we have to squeeze in some time to go to Mizu to help Yugura too." Shikamaru gave a nod and replied, "Yes, since he was under Madara's genjutsu. We need to help him as soon as possible. But, you said that other tailed beasts have also returned. Won't the Sanbi help him?" "No idea. Haven't talked to anyone but the furball since I returned," was Naruto's response. Shikamaru deadpanned and yelled, "What the hell have you been doing? We need their help too, you idiot. You are a drag, Naruto. I still don't get it as to why the sage chose you of all the people to save the future." "I will talk to them, don't worry, Shikamaru. Now, let's just finish this up and rest so that we can be in top shape tomorrow," Naruto said, his perspiration dropping as he laughed nervously. After Shikamaru grimaced in response, they resumed their cleaning. The following day, at the sound of the alarm, Naruto jolted awake. 6 o'clock was the hour. Once, he could recall the day. "Today is the first day. Are you prepared, Kurama?" Naruto asked in his mind. "I am, of course. What were you anticipating? The world cannot be left in the care of a fool, can it?" Kurama answered. Naruto grinned and said, "Thanks, Kurama," before heading out for Shikamaru's daily training. As soon as Danzo was killed, their protection was removed. As a result, Naruto and Shikamaru began training harder without fear of their secrets being discovered. After an hour, they completed their training ahead of schedule and departed immediately for the academy. They started walking together toward the academy for the graduation exams after running into Sasuke and Choji along the way. "We're going to ace the tests," Choji exclaimed as he punched the air. Sasuke grinned and said, "The exams will be easy through the park." The other 2 were lost in their own thoughts, so they turned to face them. "What do you guys think? I am pretty sure you will finish the exams with a blindfold and 2 hands tied behind your back," Sasuke said, interrupting their thoughts. Choji gave this a nod and waited for their response. "I don't know, but the exams will be a drag," Shikamaru said, glancing at them. "What do you mean you don't know?" Choji asked, staring at them in confusion. "We don't know at which place we will pass. Naruto still has a promise to keep, you know," Shikamaru said with a sigh. At this point, Choji and Sasuke recalled that Naruto had promised to stay alive until the very end so that he and Sasuke could be teammates. "Don't worry guys, I'll ace my dead last act one last time," Naruto said with a laugh. "You two can then demonstrate your true abilities to everyone, including us," said Sasuke, who had become more upbeat. Shikamaru laughed and said, "Hold on to your horses there. You've got a death wish or what? Just hope that you don't get to see his true powers. I myself am hoping so too." "Why is that?" wanted Choji to ask. "I don't wish to die so soon," Shikamaru replied, shivering. As they made their way to the academy, the four of them burst out laughing. After a few hours, Naruto's turn. "All right, Naruto, this is the last part of the exam. All you have to do is perform the 3 basic academy jutsus and you will be allowed to become a genin," Iruka said as soon as he entered after calling out his name. Naruto smiled and executed the transformation and replacement jutsu with speed and perfection, surprising both academy instructors, Iruka and Mizuki, with his skill. After he shouted, "Clone jutsu," and made the hand sign for the 3rd jutsu, 2 dead bodies that vaguely resembled Naruto appeared on the ground following a little smoke explosion. Iruka's mouth remained open for a while before he yelled, "Naruto, you fail. You can't even do a single clone jutsu," at Naruto. His tone was an obvious sign of anger. Mizuki was grinning as though he had won the world for himself, while Naruto winced at his favorite academy teacher yelling at him. Now, don't be angry Iruka. He did the replacement and transformation flawlessly. That should count for something. Can't you pass him for that?" Mizuki told Iruka while feigning innocence. "No, if he can't even do the clone jutsu passably, then he will be nothing but cannon fodder. He is better off not being a shinobi," Iruka said, shaking his head and still furious. Iruka was left fuming as Naruto ran outside angrily, continuing the act. Beyond the academy, Naruto was seated on the tree's swing, which he was used to. Shikamaru had already left with his parents, aware of what was going to happen. Since he didn't want things to get out of control if they stayed there, he had actually brought the rest of his classmates and their parents along as well. However, word had already gotten out that Naruto had failed to graduate. As he got closer to where the blonde was seated, Mizuki remarked, "Iruka-sensei doesn't hate you, Naruto." Naruto put on a show and questioned angrily, "Then why didn't he pass me?" Mizuki laughed and replied, "It's because he cares for you a lot. He doesn't want to see you get hurt. He genuinely wants you to succeed. You see, you and him are a lot alike. Both of you are orphans and just like you, he used to prank a lot when he was young. He sees himself in you. That is the reason why he didn't pass you. If you can't do the clone jutsu, he thought, you can't do anything else." Naruto was already aware of all of this. "Just a little more," he said, listening to Mizuki's pessimistic thoughts instead. "I can force him to get the scroll once he breaks. I can then win Lord Orochimaru's favor by presenting him with the scroll. He will die, the village will be free of a monster, and I will be a hero even if he fails. However, there is a method that you can utilize to graduate," Mizuki continued. "Really? What is it? What is it?" asked Naruto, grinning. Mizuki nodded and continued, "This is a secret test by which you can graduate without even knowing the basic academy jutsus. All you have to do is to sneak into the Hokage's tower and get the scroll of seals from there and meet at the place where I tell you to. If you complete this successfully, you can graduate as this is a test for potential genins. So, what do you say, Naruto?" "I'll do it, Dadbayo." "When is the test, Mizuki-sensei?" Naruto said with a broad smile. "Tonight," was Mizuki's response, smiling, assuming the boy had fallen for the tricks. After giving an enthusiastic nod, Mizuki walked away without noticing the slight smile on Naruto's face. Later that evening, Naruto had the scroll of seals on his back and was racing toward the forest. Once more, it was too simple for him to steal. He seemed to have been given the scroll. The Hokage had consented to repeat the previous sequence of events and had voluntarily handed the scroll to Naruto, knowing that it would be returned safely. After a while, however, he had made the decision to sound an alarm for the sake of the act. The two boys had consented, and Shikamaru had promised to follow Mizuki to meet him. After arriving at the clearing where Mizuki had instructed him to go, Naruto took the scroll off his back and opened it, choosing to use it to learn a few new jutsus. He expected to find more jutsus that were similar, but in reality, the shadow clones were hand-stitched specifically for him. He unfolded the scroll and began reading, "Shuriken Shadow, Kunai Jutsu." Similar to the shadow clone, This jutsu involves the user channeling the chakra into the kunai or shuriken and concentrating on replicating them rather than the user's body. If successful, it is possible to replicate the original kunai or shuriken as many times as the amount of chakra used. Caution. A significant amount of chakra is needed, only recommended for Jonins and up. As he created a shadow clone and trained it to learn the jutsu, Naruto remarked, "Hey, Gigi uses this jutsu. This will turn out to be quite useful. Okay, then, I'll learn it." Then he proceeded to the following jutsu on the scroll. Genjutsu. Darkness. Bringing jutsu. A genjutsu capable of defeating even the Sharingan of a Uchiha and the Byakugan of a Hyuga. The Inuzuka's senses can also be rendered useless by this genjutsu. It is more potent, strong, and powerful than the Temple of Nirvana Jutsu Genjutsu. Only the most powerful of the sensors can detect anything other than chakra because the jutsu surrounds the user in an endless envelope of darkness. The area of effect remains unchanged for anyone outside the jutsu's range. The amount of chakra used determines the jutsu's range. Caution. Needs a lot of chakra. Only elite Jonins and up are encouraged. As he created another shadow clone to learn it, he declared, "Finally, Datbeo. A genjutsu that even I can use. I am definitely going to learn it." The counter to Uchiha and Hyuga dojutsu and the Inuzuka senses is an added bonus. Then he proceeded to the following jutsu on the scroll. Jutsu Summoning. Edo Tensai. A jutsu that has the ability to call forth a deceased soul. Requires a living body to serve as the reincarnated soul's vessel and sacrifice. The summoner has total control over the soul in this way. Because it can quickly regenerate from any damage, the summoned soul's vessel is also immortal. Be advised that this requires a significant amount of chakra, not recommended to anybody. Only the summoner himself has the ability to release the jutsu, and killing the summoner will not undo it. The seals must be performed backwards in order to release the jutsu. Naruto declared aloud, "I will never learn this jutsu. Oi, Gaki. Acquire the seals so you can instruct your friend who controls shadows." Kurama informed him that if someone used the jutsu, he could control them and release the jutsu by performing the seals in reverse. "You're right, Kurama. All right, I'm learning the seals," Naruto said with a smile. Then he learned about the seals. 2 hours later, Iruka was concerned. Naruto had stolen the scroll of seals and had been missing for the past 2 hours. The third Hokage had just informed the assembled Chunins and Jonins. It was their responsibility to return the scroll and Naruto together, undamaged. Knowing that the adult generation harbored resentment toward Naruto, more specifically, the Kyuubi he carried within him, he had placed a great deal of emphasis on their separation. Iruka was concerned about Naruto specifically because of this. A lot of people wanted to hurt him, and nobody knew what would happen to the boy if they discovered him before he did. Iruka was running ahead of schedule in search of Naruto, and he somehow knew that he needed to head toward the forest. After a while, he arrived at a clearing close to a shed in the forest. Naruto was there, dozing off on the grass. When Iruka looked around, she saw that there was a great deal of damage all over. However, Naruto's sleeping form overshadowed the surprise. He yelled, "Naruto! What have you done? How could you do it? Why did you steal the scroll of seals?" as he leapt from the tree branch he was standing on. Naruto jolted awake and glanced around in fear. "Oh, Iruka-sensei. Look, I managed to complete the mission. Now I get to graduate, right?" he asked, smiling, after finally settling down after seeing Iruka. With a startled look of perplexity, Iruka questioned, "Huh? What do you mean, Naruto? What mission?" Naruto was thrilled when he responded, "Mizuki-sensei told me that I can graduate if I steal the scroll of seals from the Hokage's tower and bring it here to give it to him. Since you are also my sensei, you can pass me too, right, Datbeo?" "Mizuki told him to do it," Iruka said, lost in thought. Naruto was innocent, I knew that. What would make Mizuki want him to take the scroll, though? Abruptly, he heard kunais and shurikens approaching. He leapt back himself and pushed Naruto away. In fact, shurikens and kunais began to cover the area where they had been standing, and some of them were even impaled on Iruka's legs. When Iruka looked up, she saw Mizuki giggling atop a tree branch. Mizuki responded, "I see that you have found out about my little secret, Iruka." "Mizuki, it was you. I should have known all along," Iruka retorted angrily. With a shrug, Mizuki turned to face Naruto and said, "Now, Naruto, give me the scroll." "No, Naruto," yelled Iruka at Naruto. "Refrain from giving him the scroll. He'll take advantage of it. You've been duped by him." "Give it to me, Naruto," Mizuki said, "because he doesn't want you to have it. Iruka is lying to you." Iruka yelled, "Mizuki, "Stop lying, Naruto, don't let him fool you." As he said, "I am not the one lying to you, Naruto," Mizuki burst out laughing. "However, the entire village is. Throughout your entire life, they have been deceiving you. You have been deceived by everyone since the decree 12 years ago. Except for you, everyone is aware of the decree, and Iruka is still attempting to conceal it from you. I'll reveal what it is to you." Iruka yelled, "No, Mizuki," with a startled expression. "It's prohibited, don't do it. The decree is that no one can tell you that the nine-tailed fox is inside you," Mizuki stated, ignoring Iruka. "Your body has been taken over by the fox spirit that destroyed our village and killed Iruka's parents. The nine-tails fox is you. All your life, they have been skulking around and keeping things from you. Didn't you find their treatment of you odd? As dirt, as if they detested you simply for existing?" Iruka was astonished that Mizuki would tell Naruto everything, but both Chunins were even more shocked after seeing Naruto, who was using his finger to clean his ears without even looking at them, and both of them started to perspire. When Naruto saw that the two were staring at him, he said, "Oh, Datbeo, are you done fighting, yelling, and telling the truth already?" Instead of responding, Mizuki simply grabbed the Fuma shuriken he was carrying on his back and threw it at Naruto, causing Iruka's jaw to drop at his response and Mizuki's rage to shoot skyward. The Fuma shuriken had already traveled half of its distance by the time Iruka had recovered and started running in the direction of the blonde. Iruka realized immediately that he wouldn't make it, and Naruto wasn't trying to get out of the way. Iruka closed his eyes and continued running in the hopes that a miracle would save the boy, not wanting to see his brother figure pierced by the enormous shuriken. When he opened his eyes, he saw that Mizuki and Naruto were still standing in the same spot, but what shocked him, and apparently Mizuki as well, was something black holding the Fuma shuriken in mid-air, some distance away from the blonde. He had been expecting to hear either a scream from the boy or a crazed laugh from the Chunin. As he emerged from the tree's shadow, Shikamaru exclaimed, "Shadow Gathering Jutsu, success." Iruka and Mizuki stared at him, startled, and Mizuki said, "Shikamaru Nara, what are you doing here?" Lazily, Shikamaru answered, "How does it appear to you? My friend's life is being saved by me." "Well, Shikamaru, the friend you are referring to is nothing more than the nine-tailed fox that terrorized our village 12 years ago in human form," Mizuki said with a sly smile. "Why don't you step aside and let me finish it?" In response, Shikamaru smiled and remarked, "It's possible that you missed what I said. I'm saving my friend's life," I said. "My friend. You understand? By the way, we both knew about it beforehand, if that makes sense to you." Iruka and Mizuki both appeared shocked and taken aback by this, and they were both thinking, "They know about this? Since when? Then, I guess, I'll have to finish off all of you," said Mizuki, who was the first to recover from the shock. "Sorry, Mizuki-sensei, but you see, I can't let any of my precious get hurt now, can I?" Naruto grinned this time. Shadow Clone Jutsu was the seal he created for his trademark jutsu. Iruka yelled, "Don't Naruto, you'll die because of chakra exhaustion," as Mizuki and Iruka's eyes widened. The sight in front of him struck him silent. Thousands of solid Naruto clones, not illusions, surrounded them in the forest. With a laugh, Shikamaru remarked, "I can do some, but not this many. Jutsu Shadow Clone." A few dozen of Shikamaru's shadow clones then appeared out of thin air. Even elite Jonins found it difficult to pull off this feat, and in Naruto's case, Iruka questioned whether even the Hokage could pull it off. Mizuki was too stunned to move, and what followed was not even close to a massacre. In front of him were two boys, one of whom had just graduated to be a genin, and the other who hadn't, and they were rolling out shadow clones in the dozens and thousands for Naruto without showing the least bit of fatigue. Overcoming the shock, Iruka grinned and called Naruto to approach him. "Congratulations, Naruto. You are now a genin," he said, taking off his own headband and forcing Naruto to wear it. Shikamaru smiled at this. Naruto touched the headband he had worn for many years, but not in this timeline. Then he smiled broadly and gave Iruka a big hug before they all went to the Hokage's tower, with Iruka being assisted by Naruto and Mizuki's bloodied body being carried by Naruto's shadow clones. Shikamaru was carrying the scroll of seals and trailed behind them. Office of the Hokage, Hokage's tower. The Hokage was staring at the three individuals in front of him. Shikamaru, who had a slack expression on his face, Naruto, who had a broad smile, and Iruka, who was looking extremely anxious. "You see, Lord Hokage, it wasn't Naruto's fault," Iruka said, stepping forward. As soon as he gestured for him to stop, the Hokage interrupted, saying, "I know Iruka. I saw everything," he said, gesturing to the crystal ball resting on his desk. saying to Shikamaru, "See, I told you that Gigi peeks on people." Naruto laughed. "He's a pervert in disguise." Iruka appeared agitated and yelled at the Hokage. "Naruto!" Shikamaru laughed at this as the Hokage lost his temper and dropped the pipe he was smoking. "Show the Hokage some deference. Do not refer to him as Gigi." Regaining his temper, the Hokage laughed and said, "Now, don't get mad, Iruka. I guess you should go to the hospital next. Also, get some sleep. Before I send the boys home, I will speak with them." Iruka bowed and walked away, sensing that it was time for him to go. When he was gone, they all sat down, and the Hokage turned on his office's privacy seals. "I guess congratulations are in order," the Hokage said, grinning at the two boys. "Let's see now. As a graduation present, how about I teach you a new jutsu, Naruto? Shikamaru, one for you as well?" "Yeah," Naruto exclaimed, putting his fist in the air. "Datbeo, more jutsus." Shikamaru grinned and nodded. Seeing his pseudo-grandson happy, the Hokage grinned and said, "Well, then, I'll teach you tomorrow evening. What comes next?" In 2 weeks, Naruto's team will depart for Wave Country on a C-rank mission that turns out to be an A-rank one. Shikamaru responded with a serious expression. "The Chunin exams will start a month after it is finished. Everything starts to go wrong at that point." "Not if we can help it," Naruto cut in. "This time around, Chunin exams will be different." In response, Shikamaru said, "I hope so too. I would also like my team to be sent on the Wave mission, Lord Hokage." The Hokage asked, "Why do you want so, Shikamaru?" And both Naruto and the Hokage appeared taken aback by his request. "First of all, I know this idiot," Shikamaru said with a laugh. "He will undoubtedly wish to keep Haku and Zabuza alive. He will undoubtedly make a mess of things if no one watches out for him. No, I'm not interested in saving. Actually, I also want to save them. In the event that the conflict recurs, the Alliance will greatly benefit from their skills. Simply put, someone needs to handle the mission while he saves them because this idiot only thinks about one thing." The Hokage laughed and said, "Any other reason, Shikamaru?" As Naruto nodded his head and smiled broadly. With a nod, Shikamaru stated, "There is actually a second reason as well. Wave is near Mizu no Kuni. We can reach the hidden mist from Wave. That is the primary goal I have in mind. Between the Wave mission and the Chunin exams, Naruto and I must travel to and from Mizu." "Why do you want to go to Mizu?" the Hokage asked bewilderedly, and Naruto nodded, understanding the reason. "Do you not know about the Bloodline Wars? You could become Shikamaru's target as a result." "Thank you, Lord Hokage," Shikamaru said with a smile. "However, everything that goes wrong in Mizu can be fixed if we go there. You see, Madara is the reason behind the Bloodline War. He initiated the Bloodline Purge and put the 4th Mizukage under a genjutsu out of fear that the Sharingan would prove ineffective against the Bloodlines." Naruto went on, "Isopu, the Sanbi's Jinchuriki, is also the 4th Mizukage. We can both free him from the genjutsu and begin the Great Alliance's formation early if we can make it there. Additionally, we can persuade the rebels to rejoin the Hidden Mist." The Hokage grinned and said, "I'll make sure that what you requested will be completed," after being impressed by the two boys' planning and efforts to save the world. "Regarding the trip to the Mist, you could claim that you are travelers to those of the Mist and that, should your senseis discover you, you are on a unique mission. Now return home and rest. You can get your rewards for finishing your first B-rank mission tonight." This thrilled the boys, and shortly afterward they departed, contemplating the days leading up to the Wave mission.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.